I proposed to my girlfriend, but my brother was furious as she was his ex. Months later, he suddenly knelt and proposed to her at a family dinner. What would you do if your own brother got down on one knee and proposed to your fiancée, right in front of you and your entire family? Sounds like something straight out of a drama movie, right? But this actually happened to me. And trust me, it only got worse from there. A few months ago, I met Jen. She was everything I had ever wanted: smart, kind, beautiful, and we instantly connected. At first, I kept our relationship private. But as things got serious, I decided it was time to introduce her to my family. One night at a family dinner, I casually showed my parents some pictures of Jen on my phone. My mom gushed about how gorgeous she was. My sisters were excited for me. But then Mark, my older brother, grabbed my phone, and his expression instantly changed. His face turned red with anger. "Are you kidding me? You're dating my ex?" he yelled. I was completely thrown off. Jen had never mentioned dating Mark. Later that night, I asked her about it, and she admitted that they had dated, but only for 1 month. Mark had broken up with her because he was bored and never wanted to settle down. Even though their relationship was brief and meaningless to him, he still demanded that I break up with her immediately. I refused. And from that moment, things were never the same again. Months passed. My love for Jen grew, and I knew she was the one. So, on her birthday, I planned a beautiful dinner with both of our families and closest friends. When I got down on one knee and asked her to marry me, she said yes. The entire room erupted in cheers, except for Mark. I saw the rage burning in his eyes. But before he could ruin the moment, my sisters immediately shut him down. Then, 2 months later, Mark invited the whole family, including Jen and me, to dinner at his apartment. It felt weird. He had been avoiding me since my proposal, so why now? But since my parents and sisters were going, we decided to give it a chance. The dinner started off normal. We ate, we talked, nothing seemed off. Then, Mark suddenly stood up. "I have a big announcement," he said, looking right at Jen. Then, before I could even react, he got down on one knee, pulled out a cheap-looking ring, and proposed to my fiancée. Right in front office me. The room went dead silent. Jen looked horrified. "Mark, get up. What the hell are you doing?" she snapped. Mark ignored her and turned to my parents. "Mom, Dad, don't you think she and I belong together?" My dad jumped up to grab him, but before he could, I punched Mark square in the face. He stumbled back, laughing like a lunatic. "I just wanted to show you that Jen doesn't love you," he sneered. "She's just trying to get back at me." That was it. I grabbed Jen's hand, stormed out, and made a decision right then and there: Mark was not coming to our wedding. A few days later, my mother showed up at my house, furious. "You need to invite Mark to the wedding," she ordered. I laughed in disbelief. "Are you serious? He proposed to my fiancée in front of me. You really think I'd let him anywhere near my wedding?" "He was just joking," she snapped. "You're being dramatic." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Then she dropped the bomb. "If Mark isn't invited, then I won't be attending either." I looked her straight in the eye and said, "If that's what you want, go ahead. But I won't beg you to be there." She stormed out, furious. 2 weeks passed. Then my mom showed up again, pretending she wanted to make peace. At first, I thought maybe she had come to apologize. But the moment I brought up Mark's insane proposal, she rolled her eyes. "That was just a joke," she scoffed. "You're overreacting," I snapped. "A joke? You call him humiliating me in front of everyone a joke? You call him trying to steal my fiancée a joke?" Our argument escalated fast. We were yelling at each other when suddenly, Jen got up to leave. And then, my mother attacked her. She lunged at Jen, grabbed her hair, and threw her to the ground. She screamed insults, slapped her, and even tried to scratch her face. I lost it. I dragged my mother off Jen and threw her out of my house. She banged on our door for 10 minutes, screaming and sobbing, before finally leaving. That night, Jen cried herself to sleep in my arms. That was the moment I knew I was done with my mother. I reported the incident to the police, but since Jen didn't want to press charges, they couldn't do much. But my mother wasn't done yet. A few days later, she waited outside my workplace and cornered me. She screamed at me in front of my coworkers, calling me a traitor. "How could you do this to me? You ruined our family." I stared at her, disgusted. "You don't want legal trouble?" I said coldly. "Then you shouldn't have attacked Jen." She begged me to withdraw the police report. I refused. Then she said something that truly made me sick. "Your sisters forgave me. Why can't you?" I stepped closer, looked her right in the eyes, and said, "They can forgive you if they want. But I never will." Then I walked away and never looked back. My mother wanted me to cancel my wedding to avoid hurting my sister, who was abandoned before hers. I refused and didn't invite them. I'm a 30-year-old woman, correct? And I've been quite excited because I'm arranging my wedding with my boyfriend, who is now my fiancé. We've been preparing this big day for almost a year, and we wanted to make sure we had everything booked well ahead of time. Why? Because we chose a specific date in December for our wedding, and it falls right in the heart of the Christmas season, when everything gets really hectic. Here's where things become tough. My mother isn't exactly delighted with my wedding preparations. Why? My sister was set to marry a few months ago, but her fiancé abandoned her right before the altar, which is kind of terrible. Yes, there was a massive mess, and she was really upset. My mother believes that holding a wedding so soon after the accident will be extremely difficult for my sister and may hurt her sentiments. First and foremost, my wedding isn't particularly fancy or extravagant. My fiancé and I prefer to keep things simple. We don't overspend on things we don't need. Our wedding is not too expensive. We're only inviting roughly 50 guests, including our closest friends and family. We are not throwing a big pre-wedding celebration or a wild bachelorette bash. It is simply just the wedding ceremony followed by a pleasant, modest meal. Another factor is that my fiancé and I planned our wedding long before my sister considered getting married again. We didn't make this decision on a whim. Everyone in the family, even my mother and sister, knew what we were going for in December. So we're not being insensitive or anything. But, for some reason, just as things appeared to be going smoothly, my mother and sister decided to make a huge issue about it. It's very frustrating because it appears that they're turning this pleasant occasion into a drama. My sister is 3 years older than I, and this would have been her second marriage. Her first relationship ended very calmly. They simply drifted apart after 2 years and chose to split. She has been single since then. So, last Christmas, just when everything was bright and merry, my fiancé proposed to me, and it was beautiful. We had planned a summer wedding, but my fiancé was assigned a short-term trip overseas, so we had to postpone our preparations until December. Since then, we've been planning it in stages. I hate to admit it, but I believe my sister hastened into a second marriage because of me. When we announced our wedding last year, she had only recently begun dating him. They hadn't planned a wedding yet, but I found out a few weeks later that they were getting married. It sounded odd to me, marrying someone after only a few months of knowing them. Out of concern, I asked her whether she was sure about this guy, because marriage is a major deal for me. She became defensive, claiming that not everyone is capable of developing a lasting relationship. It was a really snarky comment, but I let it go. She's never had a steady relationship. I believe the longest relationship she had lasted a year, with the man she married first and then divorced after 2 years. I'm not saying that a year isn't enough time to get to know your partner, but after a broken marriage, one should proceed with caution. She had only known this guy for about 5 or 6 months, but she was ready for another wedding. Anyway, that was her decision, and I respected it and did not intervene further. They had planned an intimate church wedding with only a few guests. I believe it was less than 20. There were just 3 persons from the groom's side on the guest list. He said that his parents resided in a foreign nation and would be unable to attend on such short notice. So, from his perspective, there were 2 buddies and 1 colleague. I believe it was his manager. Nevertheless, I am not certain. However, none of them, including the groom, attended the wedding. We remained waiting at the church. My sister and dad repeatedly called him, but he did not show up. Later, he texted her and said he couldn't marry her since he wasn't sure yet. My sister tried to calm him down and advised that they continue their relationship and then decide on marriage. But he ignored her. That dude was in his early 20s, less than 25. Again, I'm not generalizing, but you know how the early 20s are, especially for Generation Z. I don't think anyone wants to settle down at this age, especially after only a few months of dating. Since then, my sister has been bitter toward me. No, I did not do any of those "I told you so" things, but I believe she blames me for jeopardizing her plans. Being stood up at your wedding is the worst thing that can happen to anyone, and I consoled her afterwards. She requested to be left alone with her friends and mother. Except for her friends and her mother, I was the only other person in the room. It was amusing though, she might have just asked me to leave. I felt terrible about it, but I left without saying anything. I wasn't feeling well, but I recognized it must be humiliating for her, and she had no idea how to respond. I contacted her after a week to check on her, but she did not answer. I texted, but it was left unread, so I didn't bother again. A few months later, I met her at Mom's house. I asked her how she was doing, and she said, Why are you treating me as if I'm destitute and abandoned by a man? I don't need a man. I'm happy and complete just being myself. I said, sure, I was just checking on you. You see, I'm not making up these assumptions. She wasn't giving me cold shoulders after her wedding was put off. Last week, we sent out wedding invites. My sister called me. I assumed it was to congratulate me, or something. But she was like, so, you're getting married in this outdoor venue? I answered, yes. She said, cool, and then hung up. I was baffled until I received a call from my mother the following evening. She urged me to tone down the wedding since it was upsetting my sister. Toning down means canceling the venue and marrying at a church or at the registrar's office with 36 individuals on both sides. I informed her that we had been planning this for over a year and that she was well aware of the plan. So why would she suddenly have an issue with it? She said that it was because my sister had been standing up at the altar, and it would be inappropriate for me to have such a grandiose wedding within a few months. I told her that we had already paid for the majority of the wedding expenses, including the venue, food, and decorations. Not only had we paid the minimum booking amount, but nearly 60% of it. I tried to make her understand that modifying the plan would result in a tremendous loss. Canceling the venue would result in a significant financial loss for us. All booking fees for the venue, decorations, and caterers are non-refundable. Hearing me moan about the loss, she urged that I cancel the wedding. I was at a loss for words. How could she ask me to cancel the wedding? She stated, actually, that is the better way to respect your sister's feelings. She would have enough time to recover from her ordeal. She suggested we move our wedding to next summer. I informed her that we had already postponed it for work reasons and could not do it again. She tried to gaslight me by claiming that if I could do it for my fiancé, I should do it again for my sister if I loved her. This made my blood boil. I assured her that I was not going to cancel anything and that the wedding would proceed as scheduled. She hung up on me. I discussed this with my fiancé, and he believes my sister is overly distraught by her position. It must be difficult for her to believe that everything is okay for me while her life is a shambles. He stated it was fine if I wanted a low-key wedding. Discussing this with my fiancé has made things worse for me because I now believe he is more sympathetic to my sister. It makes me feel like a jerk for not considering her feelings. Until recently, I had thought my mother's request to cancel or modify the wedding preparations was absurd. But now I'm questioning if I should do it. I do not know, guys. Have any of you been in a similar situation? I'd love to have a new take on this. Update 1. Hello everyone, and thank you for participating with me in the comments. It was quite helpful to me. One of the comments, probably many of you, suggested that my mother is narcissistic for asking me to adjust my wedding plans simply because it will harm my sister. I understand you are correct. It was quite cruel. I'm not doing anything to injure my sister. If she truly loved me, she would not feel this way. There's no other way to phrase it. She's wounded because she's jealous of me. That is it. And it is not my problem at all. Some of you inquired about my family dynamics, namely whether my mother has always been as apathetic to me and my sister has always been narcissistic. So, the answer is no. Growing up, I never felt that my mother was biased toward my sister. Obviously, every parent has a favorite child unconsciously, but she never made it clear. Yeah, I used to grumble that mom liked my sister more, but she was never harsh or evil toward me. My sister and I had a fairly regular sibling bond in our early days. However, during our adolescence, we grew apart. It wasn't due to fighting or anything like that. We simply matured into completely different people. She was more homely and spent time with mom and our aunts, making small chat. I was never interested in any of that. Instead of spending time with family members, I concentrated on my schoolwork, applying for scholarships, and socializing with friends. I also moved out really early. When I was 18, I enrolled at a college far from home, and I've been living alone ever since. Meanwhile, my sister lived with my parents until she turned 25. She only moved out once she married her first spouse. Even yet, her husband's house was only a few miles away, so she spent every other weekend at mom's place. Dad died 5 years ago, and since then, my sister has moved back in with mom. So, yes, they have spent a lot more time together than I have. Naturally, their link is stronger than the one I have with my mother. Nothing much has happened since my last post. Actually, I'm avoiding any talks with them. I'm not going to visit or call them. My fiancé inquired whether I was contemplating my mother's plea to postpone the wedding. I said no. The wedding would go as planned. I'll provide an update if anything changes. Update 2. I hate to admit it, but my sister is a true narcissist, and mom has been supporting her evilness. So, my mother invited my fiancé and myself out to supper. I didn't feel very well about it. Before that invitation, she contacted me to inquire about the wedding preparations. When I gave her updates, I got the impression she wasn't even interested. It was more like, "Are you still doing that?" Then she interrupted me and asked, "Why don't you come home? We can sit and discuss." I was perplexed by the entire sit and talk thing, but she explained that she only meant a general catch-up. I refused to go since I didn't like how she treated me. But last week, she called my fiancé to formally ask us to supper. He asked if she had a special event or anything she wanted to discuss. But she replied there was nothing special, she just wanted to serve us some home-cooked meals. He couldn't refuse, so we had to comply. Before traveling there, I informed my fiancé that if mom or my sister requested that we cancel the wedding, or even make any changes, he should refuse. My fiancé is a soft-spoken gentleman who is easily taken away by the emotions of others. I advised him not to give in to their demands or make any promises. If such a circumstance came, he should remain silent and I would handle it. We went there and, thankfully, my sister wasn't present. Everything was going well until mom began discussing her wedding, how she and dad married at a registrar's office, followed by a simple lunch with both of their parents. She went on to explain how the money helped them set up their home and take care of other crucial matters. Then mom tried to manipulate my fiancé by suggesting that we have a long life ahead of us and shouldn't spend money on the wedding. I informed mom that we had previously planned a very low-cost wedding relative to our means. We both make decent money, but we live a very basic lifestyle. She went on to remark that it is our family tradition to have an intimate wedding because we are humble people who do not believe in bragging. I was like, wait a minute. My sister's first wedding was more than intimate. It had almost 100 attendees. Mom defended it, claiming it was the family's first wedding and dad wanted it that way. That day, I discovered how wicked my mother was. She began sobbing, expressing her gratitude that dad was able to organize and see at least one of his daughter's weddings. She went on about how much she misses him at all family gatherings. My fiancé hugged mom to comfort her. I motioned for him not to be taken away by her weeping. He was a little annoyed by my stiffness. My mother almost convinced him, and he said, "Sure, yeah, we'll take care of it. You don't care about things like that." My sister stepped in just then, and oh my God, her bitterness knows no bounds. She rushed to console mom, telling her that she would always be there for her and that, unlike others, she would respect and follow her decisions. Her snark pushed my buttons so hard that I couldn't hold back. I informed her that I had done nothing wrong, but they were targeting me in such a way. This resulted in a full-blown quarrel between us. She stated I should have canceled my wedding because my sister was going through such a difficult time in life. She accused me of being insensitive because I did not even tone down the pomp and show. She was personally criticizing me, but I said nothing negative. I was simply defending myself. But when she remarked it was ridiculous to spend so much money on one event, I returned it to her. I answered, "Yes, it is just one event. However, it is the most important day of my life. And, unlike others, I intend to have it once in my life." She quickly realized I was referring to her 2 weddings. I understand, it was cruel and mean. But, Guy, I was over her personal insults. For months, they've been calling me selfish and pretentious. I'm done being the good and bigger guy. I'm just finished. Now, I enjoy being the devil. If they actually cared about my happiness, they would not be upset to see me marry. They're just jealous of me. Not to mention that my statement made the situation worse, and my fiancé had to intercede and drag me out of the house. While departing, I exclaimed that the wedding would go forward as scheduled, and if there was a problem, they could skip it. That happened yesterday, and I'm still seething as I write this update. I'll tell you, you can deal with all the injustices in the world, but narcissism from your own family is the most difficult to deal with. Update 3. Thank you, everyone, for your support. I apologize for the rambling in my last update. I was filled with rage and didn't know how to express it. But thank you to everyone who messaged me and commented. That actually calmed me down. Okay, I've got quite an update this time. I am getting married next week, and we are proceeding with our original intentions. That is the good part. A lot has transpired since my last post, but thankfully, I have not lost my resolve. After that severe, I'd call it, fight with my sister and, to a lesser extent, with my mother, I was experiencing a range of emotions, from rage to heartbreak. I didn't communicate with my fiancé for a few days since I wasn't in a state to have a sensible conversation. He intended to make me see something, but all I could think about was how my sister couldn't take seeing me happy, and mom was side with her, completely ignoring my sentiments. My fiancé talked me through it after my fury faded. He proposed that we change the setting to a church and cut down on our family. He believed that my sister was most concerned about the extended family attending the wedding and discussing her shame at the altar. I was compelled to reduce the number of relatives because I was not particularly close to my aunts and uncles. But I truly wanted the venue. Meanwhile, I contacted my cousin, who, to be honest, is more of a gossip monger. I called her to see if my sister had spoken anything about the fight. And indeed, she did. My sister had spread rumors about me everywhere. She claimed that I humiliated and insulted her for her broken relationships. She absolutely exaggerated the entire story. Even if it was only my sister, I could understand. But my mother had also joined her side and had been disparaging me, calling me insensitive and arrogant. When I told my fiancé about this, he instantly got out of it. He was like, "Whatever you decide, I'm not getting into your family drama." So we're sticking with the original plan. A garden-themed wedding with 70 guests, as decided. My sister's narcissism is reaching new heights. She was sobbing in front of my aunts, telling them how insensitive I am and how I am hurting her sentiments by marrying in front of her. Now I don't understand her problem. I'm not marrying her fiancé or husband. Why is she making such a fuss over it? I tried to console her. I urged her to feel happy for me. When this technique failed, she began encouraging everyone to boycott my wedding so that I may learn the importance of respecting the feelings of those close to me. When I found out about it, I emailed both of them and told them they were no longer invited to the wedding. I explained how they had been disparaging me and hurting my sentiments. I kept several important family members in the loop, including my godmother, aunt, and her husband, so that everyone knew my side of the tale. Following that email, I noticed the tables turning. I received multiple phone calls from various family members, including my godmother, assuring me that nothing was wrong. I have the right to have the wedding I want. Reservations were made months before, and everyone was aware of the arrangements well in advance. So what my mother and sister were doing was purely terrible. I have every right to exclude them from my wedding. My sister left me a lengthy voicemail, calling me a spoiled brat and arrogant for not respecting her feelings. She stated it was quite tough for her to move on. She had been abandoned by her fiancé during her wedding only a few months prior. Instead of comforting her, I was busy planning my own wedding and clawing her wounds. Then she cursed me. She predicted that I would face a similar fate, or worse. She claimed that my fiancé, or future husband, would leave me or cheat on me with other women. Only then, she explained, would I understand her anguish. All along, I had been supporting myself. I was firm about my decision. But hearing that crushed my heart. I couldn't believe my own sister could curse me like way, only a week before my wedding. The week leading up to the wedding is already an emotional roller coaster for any woman. And hearing this from my own older sister is the worst thing. People bless their siblings and children at weddings. But I am being cursed. I'm not sure what I did to earn this hate. My mother also replied to my email. She claimed she was disowning me. She advised me not to see her again since I didn't care about my family's feelings. This is how things stand so far. If anything more happens, I will provide an update on this topic. Otherwise, send me well wishes for the future. Update 4. Hello again, everyone. I'm here with another update on my wedding story. And what a whirlwind these past few weeks have been. I genuinely appreciate all of your help and guidance. It's been a huge support during these tough times. Following my last update, things took an unexpected turn. With the wedding just days away, my fiancé and I were determined to go ahead with our plans despite the constant family upheaval. Life, as they say, is what happens while you're busy making other plans. 2 days ago, my mother called me. I was afraid to respond, fearing additional requests or comments. But something in her speech took me off guard. It was remorse, which I had not heard from her in a long time. She asked if we might meet for coffee, just the two of us. Against my better judgment I consented, curious to hear what she had to say. We met in a quiet cafe, distant from the recollections of home. My mother, with tears in her eyes, handed me a letter. It came from my sister. In the letter, my sister admitted to being overcome by her own grief. She stated that her actions toward me were unjustified and motivated by her anguish. She apologized for the upheaval she caused and emphasized her desire for my happiness, even if she was still unable to attend the wedding. Then my mother spoke. She apologized for her involvement in everything. She revealed that her grief, over my sister's aborted wedding and the death of my father years before, had impaired her judgment. She told me she loved me and regretted asking me to cancel my wedding. While she couldn't change the past, she wanted to make amends and begged to be a part of my big day. I was stunned. The earnestness in their statements was evident, and it gave me something to think about. I spent the night discussing everything with my fiancé, who was supportive of any decision I made. After careful consideration, I decided to extend an olive branch. I called my sister and mother and told them they may attend the wedding if they felt like it. My sister, still overcome with grief, stated she wasn't prepared to attend. However, she thanked me and wished me a wonderful day. My mother, on the other hand, was grateful and vowed to respect our plans and support us on our special day. Everything is set for the wedding. We're sticking to our original plan, a garden-themed wedding for our closest friends and family. It feels good to move forward. Not only will we celebrate our love, but we will also take steps to mend our family. Thank you again for your words of support and wisdom. I'll make sure to keep you updated after the wedding, wishing us luck and bright skies. Update 5. Hello everyone, I'm back with what I think will be the most joyous update in this entire tale. Our wedding day has come and gone, and it was a celebration that not only represented the start of a new chapter with my husband, but also the mending of old scars in my family. Thank you all for your nice thoughts and useful advice along the process. Our wedding day began bright and clear, a wonderful December morning, with a sharp cold in the air, promising a lovely winter wedding. The garden site was converted into a magnificent setting with white and gold decorations, shimmering fairy lights draped around the trees, and brilliant winter flowers that provided a pop of color against the tranquil white backdrop. The wedding was small and intimate, attended by roughly 70 of our closest friends and family. As I walked down the aisle, my fiancé's face was filled with genuine love and excitement, which I will cherish for the rest of my life. Our vows were genuine and emotional, reflecting our journey together and the future we envisage. Throughout the exchange, there was hardly a dry eye. Even my usually reserved fiancé shed a few tears. Suddenly, midway through the reception, my mother took the microphone. My heart skipped a beat, expecting the reappearance of old frustrations. However, what followed was a genuine speech from her, in which she acknowledged previous mistakes and expressed her joy for us. She shared anecdotes from my childhood, which elicited gentle laughter from the audience. She ended by expressing how proud my father would have been to see this day. It was a significant healing experience for all of us. Later in the evening, the dance floor was open, and the atmosphere was charged with excitement. I danced with my mother, which I had not thought was possible a few months ago. We didn't say much, and we didn't need to. The dance conveyed it all. My friends and family mingled, danced, and celebrated, forming new happy memories. Although my sister was not present, her presence was felt through the beautiful bouquet she sent, along with a heartfelt message. I kept the flower near the family photos we exhibited to symbolize her role in the day. It was a heartbreaking reminder that healing takes time, and everyone's journey is unique. The reception offered a cozy, tasty winter-themed meal with comfort dishes that warmed everyone despite the cold weather. Our caterer did an excellent job presenting seasonal dishes, and the warm apple cider was a big success with the guests. As the evening came to a close, we launched lanterns into the sky, symbolizing the release of old grievances and the illumination of new aspirations and dreams. Watching them sail up into the starry sky, accompanied by cheers from our loved ones, was a magical way to close a wonderful day. Now, as we get back into our routine and think about our wedding, I'm filled with gratitude. This occasion was more than just the wedding of two people. It was about the reconciliation and healing of a family ripped apart by misunderstanding and pain. Moving forward, I wish to mend relationships and create a future filled with love and understanding. Thank you everyone again for your support and for keeping up with my posts. Your ideas and support have been a guiding light throughout difficult times, and I'm grateful for our group. As we travel on our honeymoon and future experiences, I carry not just my husband's affection, but also fresh relationships with my family. Here's to new beginnings, full of hope and excitement. Fiancé vanishes after leaving me with his sick son. Now his parents have disowned him and given me their house. For over 8 months now, I, F32, have been engaged to my fiancé, M38. For the past year, we have shared accommodation in his house. From his former marriage, he has a 7-year-old autistic kid who suffers regular illness. The lad requires much extra care and attention. My fiancé received a call from his ex-wife last week from another state, around a 6-hour drive away. He informed me he needed to go assist her since there was some kind of emergency. Although they don't often interact outside of talking about their son's care, I was shocked. Nevertheless, I knew that crises arise, so I said okay. That same day he left, declaring he would most likely return in 2 to 3 days. He still hasn't returned after 1 week. Every day I have been phoning him, and he always says the same, he will be back shortly and it is taking longer than intended. He never provides me any specifics regarding what is really happening though. I am here alone looking after his son in the meantime. It's rather difficult. Though I'm not equipped to manage his particular requirements, I still care about the lad. He experiences meltdowns for which I have no idea how to control. He has been sick with a fever for the past few days, which is frightening since I do not know his medical history well. He needs help with simple chores that I am not always sure how to accomplish. Every day I'm growing more agitated and concerned. Why won't my fiancé inform me about the emergency's nature? Why is that so slow? I'm beginning to question whether something else is going on or whether there is truly an emergency at all. When I ask him straight what the issue is, he responds evasively, saying, "It's complicated. Or I'll explain when I get back." Not sure what to believe. He's shielding me from terrible news, but another part of me is dubious that he may be lying about the whole event since I feel as though something significant has happened. Dealing with his son around the clock wears me out. Though this is far more than I signed up for, I love the boy. I am not his parent, hence I am not suited to be his only caregiver for a long run. I worry I might do something wrong and botch up. Furthermore, upsetting me is my fiancé's lack of apparent awareness of how challenging this is for me. He hardly asks how we're doing when I phone. He has not volunteered to return or forward someone else to assist. Like he has forgotten about us. What to do is unknown. Though I'm at my wit's end, I can't leave his son alone. Though I'm scared about overstepping or creating trouble, I'm thinking about phoning the parents of my fiancé to see if they might come help. If there is a legitimate crisis my fiancé is handling, I also want not to humiliate him. Am I overreacting? Should I be more patient, or is this as strange as it feels to me? I am beginning to doubt our relationship overall. What does it say about his dedication to me and our future if he could simply leave us like this without saying anything? I would much benefit from any guidance. Has anyone found themselves in a similar circumstance? What action ought I to take? Yes, this exploded overnight. I appreciate your replies and support overall. I'll try to address some often asked questions. I have tried texting him, yes. He answers, but in the same evasive manner. No, I do not have his ex-wife's contact information. I have never run across her. Although his son is in special education, right now school is off for summer vacation. Part-time from home, I have been able to look after him around the clock. Together for 2 years overall, my fiancé and I have for much of that time, I have known his son. Yet I have never been left alone with him for more than one day before. Many of you advise me to run a welfare check by phoning the police in his ex-wife's city. Though I'm thinking about it, should a family emergency arise, I worry about starting trouble. I believe I should let him one more day to provide me with a proper justification. If he doesn't, I'll attempt first to call his parents and then think about phoning the police. A few of you have wanted further history on our relationship and his past marriage. I will relate what I know. My fiancé spent 9 years married to his ex-wife. When their kid was 4, they divorced. From what he has told me, their split was much influenced by the burden of raising a child with special needs. Depressed and feeling overwhelmed, his ex-wife battled. They chose to split even though they first considered counseling. Though it wasn't very nasty, the divorce wasn't really neat either. Their differences were mostly related to how their son was cared for and housed. They finally decided on my fiancé having main custody. His ex visits 1 weekend a month and for 1 week during summer and winter breaks. According to my fiancé, his ex-wife struggles with his requirements even if she loves their son. She agreed to limited custody for this reason. She is usually late, but pays child support. Although my fiancé doesn't enjoy talking about mom, he has noted that since the divorce she has struggled personally. Though he never mentioned specifics, I sensed he meant mental health or perhaps drug problems. My fiancé had been divorced roughly a year when we first met. He told me straightforwardly that he had a special needs child and made sure I knew what I was entering. I respect his top focus, his son, as I have always known about it. I enjoy one of his qualities most of all. He is a fantastic, committed father. Our relationship grew really rapidly. Following a year of dating, we moved in together and he proposed 4 months later. Things have been rather decent generally. He treats me kindly, is diligent and is, until now, we had few big difficulties adjusting to life as a blended family. That's why this situation is so confusing and damaging. He leaving us like this and being so quiet are absolutely against his nature. I kept thinking whether I missed any red flags or indicators along the road. Since many have inquired, a few more specifics regarding his son. He is 7 years old. Mostly using a tablet software and some simple signs, he speaks when his schedule is thrown off or he becomes overstimulated. He is prone to meltdowns. His many dietary allergies and sensitivities call for a specific diet. He also has epilepsy, which is largely under control with medication but still causes sporadic episodes. He physically is tiny for his age and exhibits some motor skill deficits. He needs assistance with restroom use, dressing, and bathing. He wears pull-ups at night and occasionally throughout the day should we be out for a protracted period. During the academic year he attends a special education program offering speech therapy, occupational therapy, and other services. Usually, he needs continuous supervision even at home. He regularly wakes up several times a night and struggles to fall asleep. I have before assisted in his care, but always with my fiancé at hand. Being totally accountable for him is the first thing I have done, and it is taxing. Doing something incorrectly or neglecting a sign indicating he requires medical attention terrifies me. Some have advised me to ask his therapist or doctor for guidance. That's a good suggestion. I'll probably do that today. I'll compile a list of all his doctors and try to find some direction. About the following actions with my fiancé, I'm not sure. Though another part of me feels like this is unforgivable, regardless of the cause, another part of me wants to provide him the benefit of the doubt. I'll fall asleep on it and decide whether to call the cops or his parents first thing in the morning. I appreciate once more all of your guidance and encouragement. When I get additional data, I'll update. Update 1, though not fantastic news, I have an update. This morning, I broke down at last and phoned the parents of my fiancé. They knew he was even out of town, but not that startled, they drove right over to assist their grandson. I made the decision to bite the bullet and call the police department in his ex-wife's city to ask for a welfare check while they were en route. The cop I spoke with indicated they would send someone to her address and was quite sympathetic. About 1 hour later, the cops phoned me back. They claimed to have corresponding contacts with my fiancé and his ex-wife. Both are good. No emergency exists here. Privacy rules prevented the officer from providing additional specifics, but he stressed that there was no proof of any crime or threat. My fiancé called at last as I was organizing this information with my future in-laws. He stated he was going home right away to personally explain everything since he understood I must be angry and perplexed. He advised me to wait to make decisions until we could personally discuss things. Not sure what to believe. Though I'm glad he's all right, I also become enraged and offended. With this kind of abandonment of us, what possible reason could there be? Like me, his parents are equally perplexed and offended. They have volunteered to stay with us till he returns, late tonight. Although I appreciate their assistance with their grandson, I am dreading the upcoming conversation. Our whole relationship seems to have been brought into doubt. Once we talk, I will update once again. I appreciate your help during this insane scenario. Update 2. For hours I have been looking at my desktop attempting to come up with the correct words to describe what happened. I promised to let you all know, so here goes. My hands are shaking as I type this and I still find it difficult to believe it's real. Rather than arriving home as promised last night, my fiancé phoned. I replied right away, relief flooding me at the sight of his name on my phone. That kind of relief was fleeting. I'm not coming home, he said with a strange calmness. I'm staying here with Sarah. The woman he'd claimed required emergency assistance, his ex-wife. I thought of myself as having been stabbed in the gut. What do you mean you're not coming home? I was able to choke out. What about your son? What about us? He stopped long before speaking once more. We have decided to attempt our marriage once more, Sarah and I. After our past week of reconnecting, both of us believe this to be the appropriate course of action. I found it difficult to breathe, it cannot be occurring this way. But your son? I said, stuttering. She requires you. He has autism. He depends on consistency and schedule. You cannot just walk away from him. Still another wait. His voice was lower, almost embarrassed as he spoke once again. We have discussed it, and while we are repairing our relationship, we believe it would be too challenging to look after a child with such great requirements. For now, we believe he would be best staying with you and my parents. I came upon crimson. The man I knew, the committed parent I had grown in love with, would never say something like this. Would not forsake his child, particularly one with special needs. Your autistic son is inconvenient for your new life plans. You are leaving him? I snarled, anger replacing my surprise. Who are you? Right now I hardly know you at all. I wasn't listening while he tried to defend his behavior. I told him precisely how disgusted and damaged I felt. I called him a liar, a coward, a horrible father. I informed him I would be letting the authorities know his son had been abandoned. Weakly protesting, you cannot do that. I grabbed and hanged watch me. My head whirling, I sat there in startled quiet for a few minutes. Then I turned behind me and heard a little voice. Where's Daddy? I turned to find her fiancé's son clutching his iPad at the doorway. My heart started to break once more. How would I approach explaining this to him? I got him back to bed using hazy assurances that Daddy would be home shortly. Though I had no other to say, it felt like a lie. I phoned my fiancé's parents once he was asleep. Arriving an hour later, they looked perplexed and frightened. I told them everything and got them seated. While I spoke, his father's face grew redder and redder. His mother broke down crying. When I finished, his father thundered, "What about his son? That would be too difficult, too challenging? I'll demonstrate the challenge." Tears flooding her face, his mother was shaking her head. "I don't understand," she said repeatedly. "This is not at all like him. More than all, he adores that boy." Most of the evening we stayed up, alternately feeling loss, uncertainty and rage. By daybreak, we had a strategy. First we visited the police station. When we described the circumstances, the cops were somewhat worried. They stated they would be looking at child abandonment and gathered through statements from every one of us. "We treat cases involving special needs children very seriously," the detective reassured us. "We shall be thoroughly investigating this." We next spoke with a lawyer to go over custody choices. I didn't have legal rights to his son as my fiancé and I weren't married. As next of kin though, his parents might seek emergency custody. The attorney got right on the paperwork. My phone was blowing out messages and missed calls from my fiancé all through this. I paid them all little attention. His voice and his justifications made me sick. His folks settled me down at the kitchen table when we arrived home. Though they appeared worn out and damaged, their eyes gleamed with a steely will. "We have made a decision," his father remarked, his voice austere but emotionally charged. "We're drowning him." I blinked unexpectedly. "Are you clear? That is a major stride." His mother nodded, blotting away a tear. "We cannot respect what he has done, abandoning his child and lying to all of us. It is unchangeable. Even though he is our kid, we want nothing to do with someone who would do that. Our son raised him better than this," his father said. "I know I can't call someone who would abandon their special needs child son. I'm not sure what's gotten into him." I nodded, too familiar with their suffering and resentment. "We wanted to also discuss the house and our grandson," his mother said. "We want you to remain here for as long as is necessary. We understand this has been rather shocking, and we want you not to have to worry about where to live on top of all else." I started to object, but she held a hand to halt me. "Please let us handle this. We know our grandson trusts you and you have been quite wonderful. If he stays here with you for now, where things are familiar, we believe it would be best. We want him to have as much stability as possible, hence we will take custody but—" Tears welling up in my eyes made sense. Particularly in the middle of their personal suffering, their generosity was astounding. "Thank you," I managed to whisper. The following several days passed as a haze of activity. We visited social workers, spoke with lawyers extensively, and had many sessions with the kid of my ex-fiancé attempting to explain what was occurring in words he could grasp. Seeing his uncertainty and anguish was terrible. Not understanding why his dad wasn't returning home, he kept asking for him. Though we did our best to console him, how would you explain to a 7-year-old autistic boy that his father had left him? My ex kept text messaging and calling. At last I read some of his messages. They combined requests for understanding, apologies, and defenses. He said he still loved his son but felt this was for the best. He mentioned that Sarah and he were intending to start over in another state. Saying it would just complicate matters, he urged me not to notify the authorities. I ignored all of it. Instead, I forwarded every correspondence to the investigator working on the matter. The days stretched into weeks, and we adjusted to a different schedule. Parents of my ex visited daily to assist with their grandson. Knowing how vital routine was to him, we cooperated to keep his calendar as nearly perfect as we could. I put myself into studying all I could on raising an autistic child. I visited with his doctors and therapists, joined internet support groups and read books. Though at times it was overwhelming, I was resolved to do right by this small child who had gone through so much. Through it all, his grandparents were really outstanding. They were there for every minor triumph, every sleepless night, every meltdown. Though I knew they were still working through their own loss and resentment over their son's behavior, they never grumbled. About 1 month after everything transpired, one evening I was sitting on the porch after at last getting my ex's son asleep. His granny came out to sit next to me. "How are you holding up, sweetheart?" she questioned softly. I grumbled and ran a hand over my hair. "I'm managing. Though difficult, we are moving toward it." She nodded, stroking my hand. "You are doing a really wonderful job. We really appreciate you staying by our grandson through all of this." Tears were pricking at my eyes. I said, "I love him," simply. I could not see walking away, No matter how hard it gets. She mumbled a sorrowful grin. That's what it means to be a parent overall. It's unfortunate our son found that incomprehensible. We watched the stars emerge in companionable silence for some time. She finally asked, "Have you heard anything more from him?" I gave my head a shake. Not since last week. Trying to defend himself, he sent another protracted email. I answered none. She let out a big sigh. I never thought I would say this about my own child, but now he has to live with the repercussions. He made his choice. I nodded, caught in a mixture of resentment and grief. I keep wondering if there were signs I missed, if I should have seen this coming somewhat. She put her hand between mine. Don't treat yourself in such a way. Nobody of us saw this approaching. He tricked every one of us. Sitting there, I started to consider how much had changed in not too long. 1 month ago, I felt I understood the course of my future. I was planning to start a life with a man I loved, be stepmother to his special needs son, and be married. Future vanished from us now. In place of it was something I never would have thought possible. Along with his parents, I was staying in the house of my ex-fiancé helping to raise his baby. Therapy visits, meltdown control, and innumerable little problems occupied my days. Though it was not the life I had intended, I discovered as I sat on the porch that it was one I was beginning to adore. This small child had totally captured my heart since his own father had left him behind. His grandparents, who had every right to leave this disaster, had accepted me as family instead. Yes, there were times when I wanted to yell at the unfairness of it all, but there was also love and purpose and a sense of belonging I hadn't expected to discover following such betrayal. Regarding my ex-fiancé, I have heard via the grapevine that he and his ex-wife did in fact relocate outside of state. The cops are still looking at things. His acts probably have legal ramifications. Though generally I just hope he stays away, part of me hopes he will face justice for what he has done. We are all resolved to show his son the love and stability he requires. He deserves better. I have no idea what the future presents. Though I'm precisely where I need to be right now. Helping to care for a small kid deserving of all the love in the world. I'm not sure whether I can ever completely understand why my ex did what he did. I appreciate all of your help over this somewhat challenging period. More than you could have ever imagined, your kind comments and guidance have meant I want to concentrate on our new family dynamic and give my ex's son all the care he needs, hence I might not update again for some time, but know that your support has truly changed our life. I just discovered my husband has been telling his coworkers I'm his sister. What should I do? I need advice. Throwaway account because I don't use or understand Reddit, but I really need advice from someone not connected to me or my husband. My husband, I'll call him Josh, and I have been together for 6 years, married for 4, and we don't have kids. We have a really healthy and communicative relationship. We're both pretty easygoing and I really love him. He started working at a large accounting firm about 3 years ago, and from what he tells me he loves it there. He's made a lot of friends through his job and he goes out with them for drinks and social events quite often, and I've been totally okay with that. I'm quite introverted, so I've never been interested in meeting his colleagues or work friends, nor have I asked to. I've got my own circle of friends and I'm fine with us having separate friend groups. After what happened yesterday, it only just occurred to me that he has never actually asked me if I'd like to meet any of them, or go to one of his work events. I guess that's important context. Anyway, I'll start with what happened a few months ago, that I had brushed off until now. I was at a bar with some friends for a couple of Friday after work drinks, and a guy approached me. He was there with some friends too. He looked slightly familiar, but I hadn't met him before. He seemed friendly enough, and he asked me, "My name, right?" I think I must have just given him a confused look, because he followed up with, "I'm Jake, I work with Josh." I realized that I recognized him from some photos on my husband's phone. I don't use social media except for a private Instagram, so I'm not sure if he posted the photos anywhere, but we've got a very trusting relationship, so I look in his photos sometimes. Don't hate me. This is where it gets a bit embarrassing. I'm a bit socially awkward, and so I struggled to end the conversation, but he just kept talking at me. I guess he was already a couple of beers deep. But while he was talking, he said something like, "It's great that you guys are still so close. I haven't talked to my brother in ages." At the time I was like, huh? But I just assumed he was drunk and not making sense, so I ignored it. He started to get a little flirty, so I turned to my friends and we left shortly after that. I didn't say anything to them about it, and it didn't seem like a big deal to me. I also decided not to tell my husband that I had met his coworker Jake. Not to hide it, but because I figured the guy wouldn't even remember talking to me, and I didn't want to make it awkward for Josh at work by telling him his colleague tried to hit on me. I just thought no harm, no foul. But yesterday morning, I was out walking our dog, Monty. He's a cross between a few breeds and has very unique markings. This matters, I promise. And was on my way to my regular cafe, which is in town. I was waiting in line to order, and the guy in front was an older man. He got his coffee and turned around, but stopped and looked at my dog and goes, "Hello, Monty." Monty was super excited to see him, apparently, and so I guessed that the guy was another colleague of Josh's, because Josh brings the dog to the office a couple of times a week. I thought it was sweet, to be honest, so I smiled at him and said hi. He introduced himself. I guessed correctly that he was a colleague, but then he said something like, "Aren't you a good sister?" walking his dog for him. I was so confused that I didn't even know how to react at first, so I stumbled on my words and just said, "It's my dog." I regret it, but I genuinely couldn't bring myself to correct him and say that I'm Josh's wife and not his sister. It was just too awkward, and I just wanted to leave because I think was suddenly dawning on me what might have been going on. He asked me something about sharing a dog, but I was able to escape the conversation by being next in line to order my coffee, and he left. I seriously don't know what to do, because what the fuck? Do I even ask my husband about this? Part of me is just assuming or hoping that it's a mistake, that he doesn't talk about me much at work and they assume we are related because we both have brown hair. But the thought that he has been telling his coworkers that I'm his sister, and evidently they have seen what I look like, so they must have seen photos, makes my stomach churn. I don't even know how I would broach the subject with him. I need some help. What would you guys do in this situation? I have only told one friend what happened because it's so weird and embarrassing, and she has jumped straight to time to plot his downfall. Because she's my ride or die, love her, but I don't want to immediately assume the worst, or ruin my marriage over something that could be nothing. I'm sorry for the long and rambly post, but I would really appreciate any and all advice. Edit, holy fuck. Thank you everyone who commented with some advice. I haven't read all of them, but I really appreciate the suggestions from you guys. A small update. Josh came home at about 2:30 a.m. last night, but he was drunk so he just went straight to sleep, which is fine by me because fuck having this conversation in that state. I've just woken up but he's still sleeping. First thing I just want to clear up. I've seen a lot of people suggesting I have crippling social anxiety, or am severely introverted, which I suppose you could glean from the way I explained what happened, but I'm not. I meant that I'm slightly introverted and that I'm not the most eager to meet lots of new people at once, especially a bunch of finance bros whose weekends consist of unending sports bar beers, where I assume I would be mansplained everything until my ears bleed. Prob a negative assumption, but I'm sure some of you know what I mean. I suppose you could say that I'm confrontation averse, in that I'm quite laid back and prefer to keep a conversation easy and positive. IDK. I don't like it when things are awkward, and correcting when people misrecognize me is one of those things, but I'm not terrified of confrontation. Also, my husband and I do share some mutual friends. I didn't explain that well, but our lives are not entirely separate. The way he acts towards me around our mutual friends is extremely affectionate and normal. It is only his work friends that I have never interacted with. I've also seen some people suggest that what is going on is equivalent to my husband beating me and me hopelessly wondering whether I should break up with him. Or that I'm stupid for thinking my relationship was healthy when it clearly isn't. Like, damn, cut me some slack. I'm a real person and this is an entirely alien and bizarre situation for me. My first reaction wasn't to assume the worst, but I do appreciate that you all have made me certain that it is a big deal. I guess I needed confirmation that the things that happened are enough proof that Josh has been purposefully lying, and they weren't just mix-ups. I'm going to talk to him today and ask him directly why he's telling his coworkers that I'm his sister. I followed the advice of writing my points down so that they don't get lost if I get emotional, LOL. I will do my best not to let him slither out of it, and I hope he has some proof that his colleagues know I'm his wife. I know that's not the theatrical confrontation you guys were hoping for, but it's a Saturday, and I can't wait. Wish me luck, thank you all. Update 1. Hi everyone, I just wanted to say thank you for overwhelming amount of support and advice. I'm blown away and it really means a lot and has kept me grounded. I'm sorry for the slow update. I know a lot of you were interested in what happened. I actually tried to update on Saturday, but it turns out this subreddit doesn't allow me to post an update until 48 hours after my first post. I'm also only allowed to post one single update, so I'll try to fit as much as I can here. Sorry for how long it might end up getting. I'll just get right into it. On Saturday morning I woke up earlier than my husband. He was very hungover, so he was like sleeping a rock. But you guys will be proud of me, because I followed some advice and decided to look through his phone properly while he was sleeping. I have been on his phone so often just pissing around on it that I had never thought to check anything very deeply. I know his passcode by heart. I checked all the expected things like Instagram DMs, Facebook Messenger, his iMessages, etc., and I didn't find anything that set off alarm bells to me. But I know from some comments that people who are cheating are good at covering their tracks and hiding messages, so I kept looking around. I saw he had a folder called Work, and so I looked in there, and he had a couple of Microsoft apps, Outlook, Authenticator, OneNote, etc. But he also had MS Teams. So I opened that up and had a look around. It did feel like I might have been breaking laws looking at his work messages, but I obviously had to. Anyway, I was already upset to see that he had a bunch of one-on-one chats with several female coworkers. Which, at first glance, is obviously not an issue, because everyone works with people of the opposite gender and are required to communicate with them. But a couple of them were vaguely flirty. Nothing I would call egregious, but there would be the occasional message between them with some playful innuendo or a wink emoji. These upset me, obviously, and they did send me into a bit of a spiral, but I didn't find anything that suggested he was having an out-and-out affair with any of them. Still, I followed someone's suggestion of screenshotting the messages and I airdropped them to myself. I still wanted some evidence of the lie though. Some proof of Josh telling someone that I was his sister directly. A commenter suggested that I go through his messages and search for keyword sister. I wanted to reply to your comment and say thank you for the idea, but the post was locked, so I couldn't, but thank you. So I searched for sis on his MS Teams, hoping to find results for both sister and sis. A bunch of messages from all hands group chats or one-on-one chats came up from other people, all unrelated and about their own sisters or whatever. But my heart dropped out my ass LOL, when I saw there was a direct message from Jake, the guy from the bar, to Josh from a Monday a few months ago. Jake's messages said, "Ran into your sis at the bar on Fry. She's single, right?" And my husband had the fucking gall to reply, "Nah, she's married." I literally almost burst into flames on the spot when I saw that. I can't even describe how much I was shaking after reading those messages. Firstly, that I could have confronted Josh about this months ago. I was, and still am, so furious with myself for that. Josh would have been fucking praying I didn't remember meeting Jake or that I wouldn't mention it, and he would have been counting his lucky stars that I never did. He probably thought he was hot shit for getting away with that, and I nearly burnt a hole through the floor thinking about it, LOL. But secondly, I was just in shock that he had the balls to tell this guy that I'm the one who is married because he doesn't want anyone having it on with me, but he is allowed to coyly flirt with every fucking woman in the office. Anyway, I kept going back through the search results on his MS Teams, and eventually I got as far back as 2-ish years ago, and I did in fact find a message from Josh himself to a group chat. It said me and sis in Nusa Dua. I clicked on that and saw that he had sent it alongside a bunch of photos of him and I from our holiday to Bali. We went to Bali for our second anniversary. I thought he probably chose those photos because he's shirtless and had been working out, so he looked hot in all of them. I was in tears seeing all of this, obviously. I took screenshots of those too and airdropped all of the screenshots to myself. Needless to say, I was devastated, and still am, to see all of that. I am still struggling to even process it at all. But that all happened on Saturday morning, and I immediately took myself to my friend's house. I'll call her Sophie. I went to her place to cry it out and show her what I found, and she was extremely supportive and probably more furious than me, LOL. At around 1:30 p.m. I got a phone call from Josh, and I hung it up immediately. He sent me a few messages along the lines of, "Where are you, baby? I'm ordering food, want some? Sad to not wake up next to you this morning." Guys, I have to reiterate how much I love this man, and how fucking heart-wrenching it was to see him still acting like nothing had gone wrong. It took so much willpower to not just pretend none of it had ever happened and go home to him. I know a lot of you will yell at me or accuse me of being terrified of confronting him about this, which is not true. Please have some empathy. It takes me time to process my emotions, and I wouldn't have even been able to form a sentence if I tried to confront him immediately after seeing those messages. I needed some time away with Sophie to recollect myself, and so I stayed the night at her place. She ordered us Chinese and she helped me plan how I would confront him. I got a bunch more texts and calls from him as the evening progressed, and I eventually put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Sunday morning I woke up feeling more angry than sad, so I opened my phone and finally replied to his messages. "Coming home now, need to talk." I kept it cryptic to make him squirm, to be honest. Because I was fraught with emotions, I can't remember the entire conversation word for word, but I'll try to replay it as best I can. Long story short, I got home and he tried to hug me, but I refused him and we just stood in the kitchen. I did confront him like someone suggested. I just said, "Why have you been telling your coworkers I'm your sister?" I wish it would have been like a movie scene where the color drained from his face, or he immediately looked like a deer in headlights, but he didn't. It was like he had been girding himself for this confrontation for a while, because he just frowned at me and looked flabbergasted. He just said, "Huh?" This made me so angry. How are you going to pretend to be stupid after 3 years of lying? I basically said, don't play fucking dumb, 2 of your coworkers have greeted me as your sister and I have proof of you telling them. And I know you're pretending to be single. Essentially, I asked him what he had to say for himself. He still played stupid. He became moderately defensive and just kept saying, I don't know what you're talking about, or, why would I lie about you? I cannot describe how furious I was at this point, but I was in tears. I always cry when I'm angry. So he was trying to comfort me as if I was having some kind of irrational breakdown. I showed him the screenshot of his message saying me and sis, and I said something like, you tell me. He just said, I don't know what I'm looking at, and, I'm confused. I got so angry that I left again, and went back to Sophie's, because it felt like a dead-end road. I didn't think I was going to get him to admit to anything and I was just getting so furious I couldn't continue. He was really upset and in tears, which to me was evidence that he knew he was lying and that he was going to have to come up with some explanation. He tried to get me to stay, but I told him that until you have something to say for yourself, we've got nothing to talk about. At like 8:30-ish, he called me again and I did pick up. He basically asked for us to talk and he said he has some things to say. So I went back to our apartment. He had written out a bunch of stuff on a piece of paper as if he had prepared a speech and sat me down on the couch. He asked me not to say anything while he was explaining himself. I'll write down the gist of what he said in bullet points. He started by apologizing relentlessly and admitting that he pretended to be stupid before because he couldn't immediately think of something to say for himself. He said that immediately after he started at his job, he realized the atmosphere was like a frat house. All of his team members were men in their 20s and 30s that were single and fuckboys, his word. He noticed that the one guy in their team that was married would either get picked on, or essentially excluded from any and all social interactions. That included getting lunch, inside jokes, going out on Friday, etc. These guys were friendly and welcoming to Josh, and he admitted that he was desperate to fit in with them. He hated feeling like fresh meat. So he was scared that saying he was married would alienate him from his coworkers, and at first just never mentioned that he was married. He said he did wear his wedding ring and that they had just never pointed it out. A few months in, they were all out drinking after work. He admitted that after one of his workmates saw a picture of him and I on his lock screen, they asked him who I was, and in a moment of panic he said, my sister. He was really apologetic at this point, and he was crying a lot. He couldn't even look at me and he was just reading what he had written down. Anyway, he said that from then, he basically dug himself a deeper and deeper grave, because they kept grilling him about me and wanting to see more pictures of me. He said he had let it go on too long and that he didn't have the balls to admit to the lie. They would always bring me up and ask shit like, did you give her my number yet? Or joke that they had slept with me, etc. So when he got that message from Jake, he essentially thought it was just him taking the piss, but he didn't like the jokes they were making about me and said that I was married in hopes they would stop. They didn't. He said that this wasn't the first time he told them I was married. In fact, he had said so pretty much immediately after saying I was his sister. He said that those pictures of us in Nusa Dua were the only pictures that he had purposefully sent them and deliberately lied about, after what he called an endless barrage of pestering from his colleagues to share the pics from his holiday. He said he was really ashamed that he did that. He told me that he had never had an affair or even considered it, that the messages between him and his female colleagues were banter and that it was commonplace to talk to people like that in the office. He also said he knows how disgusting it is and he is embarrassed to have been acting like a fuckboy. Again, his word. He concluded his speech by apologizing again, and said that he was disgusted with himself and ashamed that he had lied for so long, but felt like he had trapped himself and that he couldn't find a way to get himself out of it. He said he knows he could have confessed the truth to either his coworkers or to me at any point but that he didn't because he was a coward. He said that he'll confess to his entire office that he lied and that I am his wife and not his sister if I want him to. He said that he will quit his job without a word if it would make me feel better, and that he hopes I can forgive him but he understands if I can't. Anyway, I couldn't really think of anything to say at that point. He went to lock himself in the bathroom and I just sat on the couch crying. I still don't know if I can trust what he said, and a lie that extreme is just baffling to me. If he can lie like that, for so long, what else could he be lying about? But his explanation and apologies seemed so sincere and genuine, and I guess to an extent what he said is believable. He has always been extroverted but very susceptible to peer pressure, especially from other blokes. If nothing else, to me, it's a sign of shocking immaturity. Anyway, I packed up a bag and went back to Sophie's, and I'm still at her place as I'm writing this. She said I can stay as long as I need to. I told Josh that I needed time away from him to think about everything and whether or not I believe him or whether I can ever trust him again. He told me to take as long as I needed and that he will still be there if or when I get back, he said. Even if it takes a year. Right now nothing feels real. I'm still dealing with the emotional whiplash from all of this and I can't keep food down or think about anything. I've taken the day off work and Josh told me he's going to take off the whole week. Sophie and my other friends have told me not to make a decision on anything until my head is clear. I spoke to my parents this morning and my mom says it's just a bump in the road, but she and my dad adore Josh so they're pretty biased, lol. That's where I am right now. I'll take some time before I consider my next steps. I can't say whether I'm leaning towards forgiveness or divorce, but those are really the only options. I kind of feel lost in a void at the moment. That's probably the best way to describe it, just emptiness. Thanks again for all of your advice and support. I'm truly so grateful, and having this place to write down all of my thoughts has been helpful to get my mind a little clearer. This will be my last update, unless I make an edit to clear things up. All the best 3. Parents forced me to cancel my engagement party for my golden child brother's graduation. Now they're mad because relatives chose my party. I, 28M, have a younger brother, Leon, 26M, who recently graduated from community college, I might add. About the same time, I became involved with Nina, 28F, my high school love. We have been together for 10 years, and it was about time that we made this official. 2 weeks ago, I proposed to her and decided to invite a party to our house honoring our engagement last weekend. 5 days after the invites were distributed, last night the party was hosted. The drama surrounding all of this has been so bizarre and chaotic that I have no idea how to make sense of it. It all began when I invited my close family. My parents and brother, who contacted me and demanded that I postpone this celebration. For the life of me, I couldn't understand why they would ask me to do such a thing. When I told them I wasn't going to, they informed me they had decided to throw my brother a celebration for his graduation. Naturally, it also occurred to be the day of my engagement party. Although they hadn't yet sent the invites, the same evening I sent mine they were intending to do so. Now, they said, at least one of us had to back off and allow the other honor their significant event. We share a family, hence 2 festivities on the same day would cause a lot of strife and we wanted nothing like that. The cards are out on the table. My family is not especially close. I get along with the rest of my family, but not with my parents or Leon. This is why they were not aware of the fact that I was organizing an engagement party on the same day they were scheduled to be celebrating a graduation. On rare occasions, like when we congratulated one another upon learning of his graduation and when they learned of my engagement, we do communicate. On birthdays and holidays, we wish each other well. But that is about it. It was therefore quite clear in my mind what I intended to do when they asked me to call off my engagement celebration for their day, and I said no right away. Though I mean not to discredit Leon, I believe his graduating from community college at 26 is not as significant as my engagement to Nina, the love of my life, with whom I have been with for the past 10 years. To be honest, right now I hardly give a damn about if I'm undercutting him. I had already sent out the invitations, so I made it quite plain to my parents that I was not going to postpone my event. Since they hadn't yet sent out their invites, they might postpone their thing if they so wanted. Though my parents were not delighted about it and neither was Leon, I thought it was a really decent proposition. Given my brother has always been the golden child, it was not unexpected they were behaving this way. Every small deed he accomplished growing up had to be honored. For example, I recall having this first-time emotion when I was just 7 years old as I knew that on my 5th birthday the celebration had been somewhat quiet. It had simply been my parents, a couple of their acquaintances, and a few of my neighborhood friends as my parents felt I wouldn't even remember the party when I grew up. On the other hand, when my brother was 5, they went all out and actually leased a space so they could throw him a themed party. All I got when I graduated middle school was a congratulation and a pat on the back. Leon had still another celebration after he finished middle school. It was the same when I started college, graduated from high school, and later on from college. I received no more than a few words of encouragement. I had sort of figured out after middle school that they preferred Leon far more than they did me. I thus started separating myself from them as soon as I graduated from high school and went out for college. Since they were still paying for my education bills, I did not cut them off entirely. But, I sort of stopped talking to them as soon as I started a job. Every time I saw them, I was polite to them. But I neglected to maintain in touch and they neither expected me to. Neither of us objected to the circumstances. We had adjusted as we felt was suitable. Leon and I never got along either. We used to argue or dig at each other all the time growing up, and by the time we were in high school we had concluded that we would be better off not talking. To be honest, he is rather different from me and not in the nice sort of difference. My parents treated him right from his early years, which has made him spoiled, entitled and very bratty. Everyone who knows our family would agree, I believe, that he is not exactly the easiest person to be around. Though he was really the troublemaker in high school and nearly got expelled several times, my parents never appeared to have an issue with whatever he did. When he told them he wanted to join a firm a few of his buddies had founded with a revolutionary idea, graphic printed t-shirts for kids and teens, they said nothing at all. That's exciting. Basically, it did not go well. After it failed and he ended up squandering our parents' investment money, which he also received a free pass for, he decided he wanted to go to college. He had to stick to community college and earn a degree in business as his grades were insufficient for it and he had taken rather a few gap years. Now my parents asked me to call off my engagement party so they could celebrate his graduation. Anybody in my place would have done the same, hence there was nothing callous about what I was doing. My parents started acting on the phone as if I was the worst person on the planet for not postponing my party. They claimed that although they had always known I was against my brother, this was simply too much. Though I wanted no drama before my engagement party, I tried to reason with them. Unfortunately, there was simply no conversation with them. I became annoyed at last and told them they were free to have their party on the same day as mine, but I was not adjusting anything to fit Leon or her. I then blocked them. Leon neither bothered to get in touch with me nor gave me an opportunity to discuss any of this. In any case, I did not hear from them for the next 4 days following our dispute. But from many of my relatives, I also learned that they had also gotten invited to Leon's graduation celebration, which fell on the same day my engagement party was taking place. They lacked direction on what to do. I refrained from saying anything for the first 2 days since I truly wanted to keep anyone from entering the conflict between my family and me. I respected that they chose this. It was their decision. I wouldn't worry if my family attended any gathering they desired. They were free to. Deep down, I would obviously be rather offended if a few people turned up for my party, but I couldn't make them do anything. 3 days ago though, I discovered that my parents were following the exact reverse strategy. My cousin informed me that since I have been nothing but terrible to them, my parents reportedly had been advising everyone not to attend my engagement party. Apparently, they had accused me of hosting my engagement party on the same day they had decided to host my brother's graduation party for deliberate intent. After they told me about it, I chose to send invites on the same day for my party and totally stunned them even though they claimed they had been talking about this idea for a few weeks. I figured two could play this game if they were going to badmouth me since they were trying so very hard. Luckily, I didn't have to fabricate such falsehoods to make them look awful. I basically told everyone the truth. Saying that I knew my parents had most likely been trying to badmouth me and offering folks a very distorted view of things, I messaged everyone invited to the party. On the phone call the other day, I therefore recounted what we had discussed and informed them my version of events, that which was the truth. I also mentioned that from my early years, I had to cope with the reality that Leon always got celebrated regardless of his actions and that I had been cool with it thus far. But now it was unfair of my parents to expect me to postpone the celebration of my own accomplishments only to suit them and their golden kid. Now, if any of my family still chose to believe them over me, they were free to do so. But I would truly appreciate it if they did not bother to maintain in touch with me after that. It was a quite direct and to the point argument. Though most of my family merely texted me back to let me know they could understand where I was coming from and that they were on my side, I was somewhat worried about what the reaction to that would be. They had seen personally the kind of treatment I had gotten from my parents straight from my early years. Like a few of my cousins and some of my uncles and aunts who were on the younger side, my family members who belonged to the same generation as I were informed that they would be attending my celebration. Since most of them had RSVP'd, yes, Nina and I were really content. Last night we had an absolutely great time at the party. Surprisingly, almost everyone who had been invited turned there, and I don't even believe it presented a problem for any of them. People informed me they sensed something was wrong about what they were saying when they started getting messages from my parents and refused to believe I would do as underhanded as what they accused me of. I was glad people understood that I was not the type of person who purposefully organized a party on the same day as my brother, simply to take center stage. Furthermore, many people told me they were happy I was not caving in to my parents' expectations as I was right about how unfairly I had been treated all my life. Therefore, not only did I get to celebrate my engagement with my friends and relatives, but also I discovered that, with regard to my parents and brother, most of my family members shared my views. The celebration was generally rather successful, and until this morning I was quite content. My parents and Leon visited me right away when I woke up, the last person I wanted to see. I told them to go away and honestly had no intention of allowing them in when they started ringing the doorbell. My dad countered that they would not be leaving anywhere until they had a conversation with me and that they were here to talk to me. I wanted to contact the cops, but Nina persuaded me to just talk to them once and wrap things up once and for all. I thus decided to let them in, and my folks started throwing charges at me as soon as they did. Since I had only woken up a few minutes earlier, I was somewhat surprised and somewhat confused. Yet I had chosen to act since they were accusing me of being rather jealous of Leon. They revealed that hardly anyone had come up for their party, and even those who had showed up left within a few minutes after some polite small talk to be able to make it to my party. They claimed to have heard the message I had conveyed to our cousins. I said that although at first I did not want to do something like that, they had pushed my hand by trying to badmouth me and lie about me. Still, given their loud charges, it felt as though my remarks were not even audible. They thought I was doing all of this only to constantly monopolize the attention and out of jealousy of Leon. I was, they said, separating the family. I suppose Nina came to see after some time that she had no use in trying to hold a conversation with them as they were obviously not polite enough for that. She stepped in and stated she would phone the police should they not leave that very quickly. They left then, but they were still calling me a lot of nasty names. The window shook for a good few seconds when Leon even slammed the door of our house so forcefully as he closed it. Though I chose to let it go, I half-mindedly called him back to let him have it. Like Nina, I was fairly irate. We had blocked all of them, hence an hour after they left we got a message from an unidentified number, probably a friend or someone else's number they were using. The message indicated that although all we said and did, we were still family and that they were rather let down that I had decided to have my engagement party on the same day as Leon's celebration, as this was the one thing I could have let him have. They claimed they were merely attempting to provide a good picture of him, even if he was ashamed of his fact that he was already 26 years old upon graduating from college. Besides that, his company had recently failed a few years ago, so he had little reason to rejoice and they were merely attempting to make him happy. I never even considered it in such terms though. They thus claimed to be rather let down and expected me to be more mature about this. They also apologized for trying to discredit me, but they claimed they had no other option as they truly wanted this celebration to go off without a hitch. I have been truly perplexed ever since I got that letter. Though I understand this is classic manipulation on one hand, what if they are truly sorry? We are here asking, am I the asshole, AIT, for having my engagement party on the same day as my brother's graduation party? Nina is very torn as well. Edit. Some of you seem to have a problem with the fact that my relatives did not step up for me and try to do something when they had always known that my parents did not treat my brother and me equally. In their defense, I would just like to say that they did all they could. They always tried to be there for me and were always nice and kind to me. I'm pretty sure that a few of them even tried to speak to my parents to make them realize that the way they were treating me and Leon so differently was not fair to either of us. But my parents did not care, and honestly, what more could they have done? It's not like it was a crime bad enough to warrant demanding custody of me. That would have just been absurd, and I don't think anybody wanted to do that either since they also have their lives and families to think about. Besides, I was doing just fine. I generally stopped having expectations from my parents after a certain point, so I do not mind that they put my brother up on a pedestal and did not seem to care much about me. As long as everything was paid for, I didn't care. I'm on good terms with the rest of my family, and I don't mind the fact that most of them are on good terms with my parents and my brother as well. I haven't made them choose. I had just said that if they chose not to attend my party, then we would have had a problem. But honestly, all of them did attend, and I don't mind anymore if they continue to be on good terms with my parents and Leon. I made that very clear at the party as well. Anyway, most of you were questioning why I even bothered to keep in touch with the rest of my family. And yeah, this is why. I just don't think that it's that deep. This is between my parents, my brother, and me, not them. I don't want to drag them into this for no reason. Update 1. After reading most of the responses on my initial post, I concluded that I had nothing to regret a few days later. After emailing them that I did not feel like talking to them anymore and would really appreciate it if they remained away from me from now on, I kept my parents and Leon blocked as well as the number they had contacted me from earlier. I have not heard from them for the past 3 days and none of my relatives had anything to say either. Still, today was really different. My mother visited us just before Nina and I were ready to head off for work. This was only her. My dad and Leon were not with her. She is generally much more subdued than they are. I chose to invite her in since I felt that we might at last have a civilized conversation like grown-up adults rather than engage in a yelling fight. She told me once she was inside that she was here to chat to both of us, hence Nina had to join the discussion as well. We sat there and then she began by stating she truly regretted whatever occurred lately and wanted to apologize on behalf of all three of them. To be honest, I don't really count that as an apology since, had all three of them wanted to apologize, they ought to have turned up together and done so. It is not enough just to send my mother apologizing notes. Still, I said nothing about it. Then my mother continued, saying she was still really offended over one item that had happened on their most recent visit even though she realized they had screwed up. She stated she valued our 10-year relationship and thought Nina was like her own daughter, but on their last visit Nina had threatened to call the cops on my father. Now she thought they deserved an apology for that since, no matter what, this was between family and Nina wasn't family yet. Nina had been shouting in my dad's face, threatening to call the police, and had even told him he had to leave our house right then. That had been rather rude. Now, since they were willing to atone for what they had done, she expected the two of us to also apologize since we had also treated them disrespectfully. Nina for yelling at my parents, and me for letting it go and passively observing while my fiancé yelled at my parents. For a moment neither of us knew what to say. Then I became rather agitated by what was being said, so I informed my mother that although I valued her gesture of showing up and apologizing on behalf of my family, it was entirely pointless. Since it was just my mom, I had genuinely thought that she would at least make sense and try to right things. They still couldn't let go of their great ego though. She had just wasted half an hour of our time, and I informed her straightforwardly that we did not need a moral lecture from her. Since Nina had arrived at our house uninvited, I told her she was exactly within her rights to shout at whoever she chose. We had opened the door because we honestly thought we could have a conversation with them and clear the air, but they had shown us wrong by acting like lunatic persons and yelling in our faces as soon as the door was opened to them. More crucially, it made little difference to me whether or not they regarded Nina as family. To be honest, she was my family. Even more so than they were. Therefore, neither of us owed them any apologies, and right now I wouldn't want one from them either. Now that she had said whatever she came to say and we had listened to her out, I informed my mother we were done and she had to leave. She refused to get up though, and declared she would not tolerate this kind of behavior from me. Since I was not even interested in communicating with my family anymore, it really started to get a little annoying. I ended up telling my mother that I really did not care what type of behavior she would take from me. I had separated myself from them anyhow once I graduated from college, and now, following all that had transpired, I just wanted never to talk to them ever again. I wanted her out of my life, hence I was fine with it if she disliked this kind of behavior. She did not have to put up with me. The same went for my dad and brother. After a little argument, she informed me that they were leaving now since I had made it quite plain that I did not want them in my life, and she was going to make sure I never got to see them ever once again. I assured her I was good with it, and she departed at last. We arrived late for work by a lot, but at least this interaction will help to bring an end to all of this since, to be honest, I'm sick of my family. Every time any of them show up at my house, I just call the cops. That's it. Update 2. Hey, 3 weeks have passed since my last report. Nina and I had quite anticipated this entire thing to have blown over by now. But last night, my folks decided to pay Nina's parents a visit. As I mentioned, we have been together for 10 years. So, even our families know each other really well, and Nina's parents reside a few blocks from mine. They thus showed up at their house around 10 in the night to discuss our children and their terrible behavior. Nina's parents first didn't know what to do since they heard about our recent arguments, but they let them in finally since they wanted to be polite. Nevertheless, they began moaning about how they didn't even know where they had gone wrong with parenting me and were so unhappy that I had turned out this way, whereas Leon was the model of what a wonderful kid should be right away. They began discussing how he was still living with them since he did not want to forsake them in their old age. Yes, as if that were the real reason and not because he lacked the means to live by himself. Neither do my parents ask him to pay for any other bills or expenses. They let him live rent-free. Still, they continued for a few minutes, endlessly praising Leon and disparaging me as nothing but a disappointment. By then Nina's parents knew they were most likely a bit drunk. Then they began discussing Nina and the manner she had allegedly offended them the last time they had seen her. She had always been a shy and quiet child, thus they were rather surprised since they informed her parents they did not mean to be nasty but they had never expected Nina to behave this way with them. But she had started displaying her actual hues ever since she got the ring on her finger. Still, they seemed there because they had a scheme in mind. Not too far off, they would be able to bring us into line and increase our respect for our parents. Their idea was a great one. Presumably Nina's parents and neither their parents would be willing to pay for our wedding, so we would be left with no other choice except to apologize for our actions and try to be better children to them. We have always had a decent relationship with Nina's parents, hence I find it strange why they would bring them into any of this. They're, the word, oh yes, normal, unlike my folks, who are as crazy as they come. After mine left, Nina's parents phoned us and updated us on what had happened. Though I really wanted to be furious with them, the whole event was so strange that we all ended up laughing over it. I'm quite happy that she and her parents did not find an issue in my parents' behavior since otherwise I may have been in trouble and once more I would have had to apologize for my parents' activities. My prospective in-laws, however, are really laid back and informed me I had no need to worry about any of it. They did not mind as they knew that both of my parents were not right and had known them for a long period. The following time my parents came up, they would simply refuse to let them in. Still, I'm happy we could straighten that out without any problems. I simply hope they get the hint and avoid bothering Nina's parents once they don't get any reaction from her. Still, just for good measure, I'm going to unblock them and warn them not to harass anyone else in the family. Or, I will be compelled to go legal after action. Though I'm not sure what I would do, I'm rather confident they will be scared even if I simply lie about it, therefore maybe they may back off. Right now that's the strategy. See whether they attempt something humorous or not. Update 3. Hey, I last blogged over a year ago and I haven't heard from my brother or parents in practically that long. It has been indeed the best year of my life. 2 months ago, Nina and I also got married. Everyone I love was there for the wedding. We had an amazing time, and a few weeks back we at last came back from our honeymoon. My parents did not wish me well, and neither did Leon. Part of me is happy since otherwise I would have had to deal with them. I'm just loving married life right now, and I am looking forward to spending the rest of my life with her. I'm not really bothered about anything as long as she is at my side. Parents secretly charged $115K on my credit card for my sister's Europe trip, so I reported it as fraud, leading to major family fallout. Though I never imagined I would be producing an article like this, here I am still in shock and bewilderment over what my parents have done. Alex, 28. Has a younger sister, Emma, 22F, who recently graduated from college. Although our parents have always been, let's say, fascinating in their style of raising their children, this most recent act infuriates me. For background, I have always been the family's responsible one. After working hard in school, I applied for scholarships, and straight out of college earned a decent position in finance. Since I was 22, I have been financially independent. I am glad of what I have done. Emma, on the other hand, has always been the family's young darling. I love my sister, so don't get me wrong. Yet our parents have clearly pampered her. Emma was always obviously the favorite growing up. She was never forced to work a part-time job or help with housework. She acquired the newest appliances and outfits. Focusing on my own objectives and future, I tried not to let it disturb me too much. Nevertheless, occasionally the partiality was difficult to overlook. One specific event came to me when Emma was 10 and I was 16. Months of saving had gone into a new gaming system purchase. Excitedly telling my parents I was heading to the store to buy it, the day I at last had enough money. They answered shockingly, "Oh, we already got one for Emma last week, you are welcome to share hers." Though I was heartbroken, I tried to be happy for my sister and stashed my disappointment. Still, forward swiftly toward the present. Emma recently finished with a degree in communications. She worked hard and deserves to celebrate her accomplishment, hence I am actually proud of her. I also gave her a beautiful graduation present, a new laptop she had been coveting. I heard from my mother last week. She was bursting with enthusiasm, sharing with me Emma's ideal graduation present, a month-long trip throughout Europe. Thinking Emma's gift from our parents was a kind one, I was pleased for her. The shocking revelation then came. "We used your credit card to book it all," my mother remarked dismissively, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. "We needed the points from your card to upgrade some of the flights and hotels, thus we will pay you back, naturally." I had no words. What I was hearing defied belief. When I finally recovered my voice, I inquired about their expenditure. The response made me feel as though I had been pummeled in the gut. $155,000. $155,000 on my credit card without authorization or knowledge. Trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom," I continued, "you cannot just use my credit card without asking me. That's illegal. $155,000 is a lot of money." She discounts my worries. "Oh, Alex, be not too theatrical. It relates to the graduation of your sister. Family looks out for one another. Beyond that, we're good for it. Eventually we will pay you back." Finally. Even then, what did that mean? And because $155,000 is just casual about when. My mother wasn't hearing it when I attempted to explain to her why this was such a big deal. The effect on my credit score, the fact that I might need the credit limit for emergencies, the pure betrayal of trust. "You have always been so selfish," she remarked, her voice going icy. Could you simply be glad for your sister? This is her big moment. Your penny-pinching habits are trying to destroy it. What I was hearing defied belief. For complaining about an illegal $155,000 transaction on my credit card, I was seen as selfish. I hung up the call feeling a mixture of hurt, wrath, and incredulity. I tried to talk to my dad over the next few days, expecting he would be more reasonable, but he confirmed what my mother had said, that I was exaggerating, and I should encourage my sister more. Emma, for her part, appeared completely blind to the circumstances. She simply gushed about how thrilled she was about the trip and thanked me for helping her to graduate. When I tried to discuss it with her, I thought I was insane. Was I indeed the irrational one present? To contest the charges, I decided to phone the credit card company. However, to my astonishment, I found that my parents had booked everything online using my card details, which they had in case of an emergency. The credit card company said that it wasn't deemed fraud as I had provided them with my details. I now have a $115,000 debt, a maxed-out credit card, and a family who believes I'm being self-serving for not wanting to pay for my sister's expensive trip. The individuals who are meant to love and encourage me have betrayed me, hurt and angered me. What to do eludes me. Though I know that would cause great family strife, part of me wants to call off the entire vacation. Another side of me wants to simply pay it off to save the drama, but $115,000 is a lot of money and the idea of the thing truly disturbs me. Furthermore, allowing this fall could set a standard for more financial mistreatment going forward. Is my reaction too strong? Should I just swallow it and pay for my sister's vacation, or should I stick to it even if it means maybe souring ties with my family? I could really use some guidance. I feel lost. Update 1. I appreciate all of your advice and encouraging words. The sheer reaction to my post really startled me. Reviewing your responses helped me to see that my anger over this scenario was not insane. I felt violated. Considering your counsel, I decided to proceed. I first escalated the problem by phoning my credit card provider once more. I detailed the circumstances, stressing that although my parents had my card information for an emergency, I had never approved this particular use. Following some back-off, they decided to look at the charges as possible fraud. I then asked for a family Zoom call to go over the matter and texted Emma and my parents groupwise. Before acting more forcefully, I wanted to let them have an opportunity to write this. The call was, at least mildly intense. I began gently outlining why their acts were unacceptable, the legal ramifications, the mistrust, and the financial burden it placed on me. I informed them they had to immediately cancel the vacation since I had reported the charges as fraudulent. The response of my parents did not reflect what I had hoped. They were outraged, accusing me of being dramatic and seeking to spoil Emma's graduation party. My mother went so far as to add, "We raised you, clothed you, and covered your head with a roof. The least you could do is assist your sister in having a lifetime of travel." I inhaled deeply and answered, "You decided to have children. Your obligation as parents was to support us. It does not mean you are free to use credit cards under my identity." Emma, who had been calm up until now, started crying. She wailed, "I can't believe you're trying to ruin my graduation gift. You have always harbors envy of me. Why can't you simply be glad for me once?" Her comments stung, but they also sharpened my will. I knew this pattern of entitlement and favoritism ran deep, and it was time to create some clear limits. "Emma," I continued, trying to keep my voice soft but strong, "I'm glad for you and I'm proud of your graduation. But this vacation was booked illegally with money taken without permission. It's not okay and it's not a gift from me." At last, my normally quiet dad spoke up. "Son, we didn't think it was such a big deal. For crises, we have always had access to your card. As a family, we simply reasoned that this one occasion would be acceptable." What I was hearing defied belief. "Dad, this was not an emergency and $155,000 is not a small sum. You cannot only choose to spend my money without consulting me." Emma was crying, my parents were furious, and I felt exhausted but determined when the call finished. Insisting that I was overreacting and that they would reimburse me shortly, they refused to call off the trip. Following the conference, I moved forward. I told a buddy of mine, a lawyer, the circumstances. He cautioned me that, should I decide to take legal action, what my parents did was in fact illegal and grounds for legal action exist. I also reported the illegal credit card use by going to the police station. The officer I spoke with took down all the specifics and was sympathetic. He advised me that although following charges would probably cause a significant divide in my family, I was quite within my rights to do so. About what to do going forward, I'm still divided. I adore my family, on one hand, yet I get nauseous thinking about suing them. Conversely, their behavior is inappropriate. Hence, if I do not act strongly right now, this kind of behavior may resurface in the future. I have chosen to wait and see for now what results from the credit card company's inquiry. To stop any more illegal usage of my information, I also froze my credit. This whole scenario has let me know I had to set more rigid rules for my family. Though I've always attempted to be the peacekeeper, that is, to straighten things out and maintain everyone's happiness, I have let myself be repeatedly exploited in doing so. Though I'm hurt and outraged, I also feel an odd sort of empowerment. I'm standing up for myself and saying no, this is unacceptable, for the first time. Though unpleasant and frightening, it also seems vital. Again, thanks all for your support and guidance. Once I have more updates on the credit card inquiry or if anything else comes of course with my family, I will update once more. Update 2. My previous update was several weeks ago and a lot has transpired. I wish to thank them once more for their help and guidance. Your remarks have been a lighthouse through this trying period. First, the good news. My credit card company's inquiry came back positive. They reversed the charges since they agreed they were illegal. Having that $115,000 weight off of my shoulders relieves a great deal. Now let's consider familial fallout. All hell exploded when my parents and Emma discovered the credit card dispute had caused the trip to be cancelled. Furious calls and texts swamped my phone. Saying I had destroyed Emma's life, my mother left an especially angry message labeling me a selfish, unappreciative son. Emma went to social media and shared a moving video about how her spiteful brother had ruined her dream graduation trip. A few of our shared friends and relatives began contacting me to find out why I was treating my younger sister so badly. The matter was spiraling out of control, and I knew I had to straighten the record. I posted a calm, objective piece outlining what had actually happened. How my card had been used without my consent and how I had tried to mend things with my family prior to acting with the credit card company. The reaction to my post was uneven. Some were encouraging, expressing dismay at the behavior of my parents. Others felt I ought to have just taken one for the team and let Emma travel. Finding out how many others felt it acceptable to conduct fraud as long as it was for the family opened eyes. A few days following my post, my mother's sister called me unexpectedly. She offered some family history I hadn't learned before and showed understanding of my circumstances. My mother apparently had a history of financial irresponsibility and has past taken advantage of family members. My aunt gave me her support and urged me to be firm. Talking with my aunt helped me to see that the problem went beyond one occurrence. Years of enabled and excused behavior have set a habit of behavior. I understood then that I had to keep strict limits not only for my own benefit but also to stop the cycle of financial mistreatment. I made the decision to go really big. For the foreseeable future, I informed my parents I would be not interacting with them at all. I said I couldn't trust them right now and I needed time to sort through what had happened. Emma also heard me say that although I loved her and felt good about her accomplishments, I wanted some distance from her too. Their responses were almost always unfavorable. My parents charged me with severing the family. Emma sobbed and stated I was punishing her for something outside her control. Though difficult, I stayed to be sure of my choice. Amid all this family turmoil, I have been especially focused on shielding myself against potential financial mistreatment. I replaced all of my passwords, closed the credit card my parents had access to, and opened a fresh one at another bank. To work through my emotions about the circumstances and create better limits, I have also begun visiting a therapist. One unanticipated benefit of this whole process is that it has brought me closer to a few relatives and my aunt, who contacted me to provide encouragement. Knowing that not every member of my family finds what my parents did acceptable is good. Regarding Emma's graduation vacation, I learned via the family grapevine that her parents are still considering sending her someplace. Though I keep reminding myself that it wasn't my obligation to offer that for her, part of me feels bad about her missing the Europe vacation. I still find myself battling doubt and remorse. Sometimes I worry whether I did the right thing or too hard, but then I remember the violation I felt when I found out what they had done and I know I made the correct decision in speaking out for myself. Though it's a painful wake-up call, this event has also been a valuable lesson in self-respect and establishing limitations. I'm finding that love shouldn't have a price tag and that saying no, even to family, is okay. Again, I appreciate your support. For now, I'm concentrating on mending and moving forward. I will post should there be any noteworthy changes. Update 3. My last update was almost 2 months ago, hence I wanted to let you all know some advancements. Over this trying period, your ongoing support and guidance has been priceless. Let us start with the most urgent matter, the legal one. Following much thought and legal advice, I opted against charging my parents. This wasn't a simple choice, and I know many of you suggested I file a lawsuit. My attorney noted, though, That since the credit card company had reversed the charges, going for a criminal prosecution would be difficult and maybe expensive without any assurance of victory. Rather, we have formally written my parents a cease and desist letter telling them that any future use of my financial data will cause instant legal action. Now, on the family matter. The no-contact period with Emma and my parents has been instructive and difficult at once. It allows me time to consider our family dynamics and concentrate on myself. Having regularly attended therapy, which has been quite beneficial in helping me to process my emotions and create better limits, about 1 month into the no-contact period, Emma sent me an uninvited email. Unlike her earlier crying claims, this email was refreshingly adult. She said she had given it much thought and came to see how mistaken our parents' behavior was. She felt bad about her first response and about not defending me. Emma said she had always known about the favoritism but had been too comfortable and afraid to question it. Though I was cautiously hopeful by Emma's email, I decided to go gently. Since then, we have had a few phone calls. From what I can see, she is actually attempting to grasp my viewpoint. She had earlier kept to herself some of her own experiences with our parents' financial carelessness. The aborted Europe trip seemed to be a wake-up call for her as well. Regarding my parents, they have been less ready to take accountability. From guilt-tripping emails to enraged voicemails, they have tried multiple times to reach me. One day, my mother even showed up at my apartment without warning, creating quite a disturbance in the corridor. Though it was tough, I stayed my ground and avoided interacting. The extended family dynamics have been conflicted. Some families have been encouraging, especially my aunt who first got in touch. She is now a great friend and ally. Others, using the but their family justification, nevertheless encourage me to reconcile with my parents. For my own mental peace, I have had to cut ties to some of these cousins. Positively, nonetheless, this circumstances has resulted in some unanticipated personal development. Spending the time and effort I used to manage the drama in my family has helped me to concentrate more on my own life and aspirations. I have started a new pastime, photography, and have been spending more time with pals that honor my limits. I have also made some really important financial choices. I started establishing a stronger emergency fund and have been more generous to my retirement funds. The value of financial freedom and stability has been really emphasized by this whole experience. Last week brought one especially fulfilling event. At work, I got a promotion accompanied by a significant wage raise. I might have felt obliged in the past to tell my family this news and the money gained. This time I celebrated privately with a small group of close friends, glad of my achievements free from guilt or obligation to share. Regarding Emma's graduation vacation, my aunt told me our parents ultimately sent her on a 2-week California tour. Emma apparently had fun with it. Looking ahead, I'm somewhat hopeful but yet wary. I have chosen to keep my parents under no contact for at least 3 more months. I need more time to recover and evaluate whether they can honor my limits. Emma allows me to gently restore our friendship, but I'm moving carefully and keeping clear limits. This encounter has really helped me to learn about the real meaning of family, standing up for myself, and establishing limits. Family, I've come to see, is about love, respect, and support as much as blood ties. The friends and relatives who have supported me during this struggle have shown me what actual family entails. About financial freedom, I have also gained a useful insight. Although I have always been frugal with money, this scenario has made me especially more alert. On all of my accounts, I have added extra security measures. I have also become more aggressive in safeguarding my financial data, even from relatives. Particularly during family gatherings I missed because of the no-contact policy, there have been times of uncertainty and grief. Mother's Day proved especially challenging, but I remind myself that my mental health and personal development depend on this distance. One unanticipated result of this is that I have started to be really helpful to friends handling personal family financial problems. Many people have come to me seeking guidance on establishing limits and handling financially reckless family members. Being able to guide others through the same circumstances makes one feel wonderful. Regarding my parents' financial circumstances, my aunt has told me they are having trouble. Apparently, they had been depending on my credit for purposes beyond Emma's vacation. This has caused some conflict between them since my dad holds my mom responsible for pushing too far with the credit card theft. Though part of me feels bad knowing they are facing money problems, I tell myself that their bad financial choices are not my duty to correct. Emma has offered some observations on how our parents responded to all of this. She adds they still don't really know why I responded so passionately. They can't understand why I'm making such a big deal out of it. They view their activities as natural family behavior. This ignorance irritates me, but it also helps me to realize that I made the correct choice in separating myself. After much thought on my early years and early adulthood, I came to see trends of financial and emotional control I had accepted. Though it's been a difficult journey, it also releases something. I'm learning to validate my own emotions and experiences apart from parental approval. Regarding my personal life, I have lately started dating once more. Dealing with all this familial drama, I had been reluctant to interact with anyone. But lately I came across someone who has been rather sympathetic about my circumstances. Though early days, it feels fantastic to be developing a relationship with someone who upholds my values and limits. I'm also thinking about drastically altering my life. Though I have always wanted a master's degree, I put it off somewhat because of worries about how it would affect my capacity to support my family financially. I'm now really researching programs and thinking about diving in. Making decisions grounded just on what's best for my future and me feels empowering. I find as I draft this update how much has changed in a few months. The first shock and resentment had subsided to be replaced by a cool determination. I'm actively building the life I want for myself, not only responding to the behavior of my family. To those of you perhaps handling such familial problems, I want to say it gets better. Although setting limits is difficult and there can be reactions, keep firm. Your rights include those to guard your mental health, money, and personal belongings. Again, I appreciate all of your support on this trip. Your guidance and support have been a lifesaver. Though I'm not sure what the future holds for my connection with my sister and parents, I know I will be fine whatever comes of it. Right now I'm stronger, more certain of myself, and ready to meet whatever lies ahead. If there are any major changes, I will notify once more. For now, I am focused on forward-looking and creating the life I want surrounded by supportive people. Here's wisdom earned and fresh starts. Update 4. My last update was 6 months ago, and I felt it was time to let all of you, who have been so encouraging over this path, know the most recent developments. First, the most news. I have been accepted into a master's program in a city 3 hours from where I presently live. This 2-year financial technology program fits very nicely with my professional objectives. Starting this fall, I am equal in excitement and anxiety about this new phase of my life. Choosing to work for this degree was not simple. It involves quitting my career, relocating to a new place and starting some student debt, but it also means making investments in my future, in the manner I have always wanted. I came to see that I had been holding back, constantly weighing how my choices might affect my family. It seems quite freeing to now be choosing based on what would be best for me. Regarding my family, things have changed in ways I never would have predicted. 2 months ago, the no-contact period with my parents formally came to an end. I agreed to a family therapy session run under the direction of a professional therapist. It was quite strong. Defensively still believing they had done nothing wrong, my parents arrived, but as the session went on, some shockingly real facts emerged. My dad had hidden from everyone, including my mom, a large loss of money from a poor investment. For months they had been covertly struggling financially, and they looked to my credit card to keep appearances. Many tears and accusations followed from this insight. My dad felt guilty of his bad financial choices, my mom felt deceived by his silence, and both of them at once seemed to realize the weight of what they had done to me. Although this justification does not absolve their behavior, it did enable me to see the desperation driving their bad decisions. The therapist guided us through some of these problems, and for the first time both of my parents sincerely apologized. Monthly family therapy sessions are going to continue under our agreement. Though I'm still keeping strict limits and it's a gradual process, I feel cautiously hopeful about reconstructing our connection on better terms. Emma has kept developing and maturing. She moved into her own apartment and started working full-time in order to reach financial independence. Our conversations have become more frequent, and I feel as though I am first starting to know my sister as an adult. She has even sought guidance on saving and budgeting, which is a major advancement in our relationship. Personal-wise, the relationship I highlighted in my last update has evolved into something unique. Though it means we will be doing long distance for a period, Sarah has been quite encouraging of my choice to return to school. Her own experiences with establishing limits with family have made her a great source of insight and encouragement. Financially, I am in good shape. Thanks to the encouragement I got, I was able to somewhat offset the expenses of graduate school and save a sizable sum for my move. I have also started to defend my financial data far more aggressively. I recently had to turn down an attempt by a distant relative to guilt me into co-signing a loan. Though it wasn't easy, I stood my ground and felt good about imposing limits. I've been thinking about how much has changed since that first startling phone call from my mother concerning the credit card charges as I get ready for this next phase of my life. The hurt and resentment I had then have mostly disappeared. Instead, I now feel empowerment and self-assurance I never realized I had. This process has taught me so much. Even, and especially, with family, I now see the value of establishing and upholding limits. True family, whether related by blood or by choice, promotes your development and respects your boundaries. I have come to see that it is okay to give my own well-being and future top priority. Thank you to everyone who has tracked my narrative and provided encouragement and guidance along the road. During some quite trying circumstances, your words have been a lighthouse of strength and clarity. To anyone who might be experiencing similar family conflicts, know that it is possible to emerge on the other side wiser and stronger. I am excited and full of possibilities as I pack my flat and get ready for this new journey, not something I have felt in years. I'm glad of how far I have gone, and I am excited about what the future presents. I'll be busy with my move and starting school, hence I might not update again for some time. Nonetheless, I will always be appreciative of the help I have gotten here. Here are fresh starts, acquired knowledge, and the bravery to design the life we wish for personally. My mom abandoned me, and my cruel stepdad kicked me out. Years later, they're back begging for help, and I told them this. For the past 5 years, I, an 18-year-old man, have lived with my mother and stepdad. My life changed dramatically when at 10, my biological dad died in a vehicle accident. For my mom as much as for me, it was a trying period. For a few years, we battled both financially and emotionally until my mom met Mark when I was 12. They spent a year dating before getting married when I was 13. Mark clearly didn't like me right from the start. He always saw me as a burden and a continual reminder of my mother's previous relationship. That day they were wedded to me. I noticed Mark staring coldly, calculatedly while everyone was celebrating. Though I dismissed it as simply wedding day nerves, it made me shudder. Growing up, I made every effort to fit in with Mark. Along with maintaining my grades and helping him with yard work or watching football, activities he liked, I worked around the house. Still, it never was sufficient whatever I did. He would always find means to denigrate me or make me unwelcome. Mark would criticize me for not being his actual son or for simply squandering room in his house. If it were up to me, you would be out on the street where you belong, he would say, or, you're lucky your mother loves you because no one else would put up with a useless kid like you. Though they hurt, I tried not to let them define me. When she saw these exchanges, my mother would try to referee, but she usually sided with Mark to diffuse conflict. She might remark, he doesn't mean it that way, or you need to try harder to get along with Mark. In my own house, I felt as though I was continually treading on eggshells. As I aged, things grew worse. Mark insisted on my paying rent when I reached 16 and started working part-time at a nearby grocery store. Though she felt it was a little harsh, my mother agreed it would teach me responsibility. So a good amount of my little pay went to Mark every month, leaving me nothing to save or spend on myself. My mother recently landed an incredible job overseas. She could possibly acquire a permanent job from a 6-month contract she was presented with in Europe. I could see the thrill in her eyes when she initially told me about it. I had not seen her genuinely delighted about something in years. But worries about living alone with Mark soon eclipsed my delight for her. I told my mother about how Mark treated me when she was away, therefore expressing my worries. I related stories of events when he would accidentally ruin items I cared about, such as the model airplane my dad and I created together before he passed away, or how he would forget to buy groceries I could eat knowing I had dietary restrictions. My mother dismissed it, saying Mark was merely tough and I was exaggerating. She advised me to give him an opportunity and that living together might strengthen our relationship. That day my mother left was among the toughest of my life. I hugged her tightly while we stood at the airport, stifling tears. Though I wanted her to stay, to not be left with Mark alone, I couldn't bring myself to slow her down. Mark laid his hand on my shoulder as she passed the security checkpoint. Though his hold was agonizing, to anyone observing it would have looked like a consoling action. His voice chilly, he continued, "Let's go home, boy. Things are going to be different now." And they were different as well. Things plummeted from the time we arrived home. Mark started screaming at me for the most minor transgressions. Should I leave a dish in the sink or arrive home 5 minutes later than usual, he would yell. Once on my way to school, I unintentionally left a light on in my room. Mark had taken out every light bulb from my room when I returned. "You don't deserve to have any if you can't remember to turn off the lights," he remarked, grinning. Saying he was merely letting me stay because of my mother, he threatened to kick me out several times. "One incorrect move," he would counsel, "and you'll be out on the street. And who do you suppose your mother will find credible? Me, her devoted husband, or her unappreciative kid brat?" Though I tried to keep my head down and avoid confrontation, it was getting intolerable. My mental health was failing and I couldn't concentrate on my academics. I was depressed and concerned all the time as my grades began to slide. Several times I called my mother to let her know what was occurring, but she always appeared preoccupied and advised me to sort it out with Mark. Her voice sounded stressed about her new employment, and I didn't want to aggravate her problems. About 2 months into my mother's absence, one evening things got out of control. Covering a sick colleague, I had been working late at my job. When I got home late, I contacted Mark to let him know. But when I got there he was waiting for me, enraged. He accused me of lying, of doing drugs or running afoul of the law. He labeled me useless and declared he was bored with having me around when I tried to explain. Driven by a flash of wrath, he seized a box containing old pictures, my dad's watch, and school keepsakes and threatened to toss them. I begged him to stop, and in the struggle the box dropped and its contents spilled over the floor. Mark topped me as I hurried to gather my things. "This ends now," he snarled. "I will throw you out myself. I want you out of my house by tomorrow." That was the final straw. I knew I couldn't stand it anymore. I packed a bag with basics and departed in the middle of the night once Mark turned in for sleep. After a few days of crashing at my best friend's house, I discovered a small room to rent using part-time job savings. I didn't notify my mother right away since I wanted to spare her from stress and compromise her employment possibility. When she returned, I reasoned I would explain everything. Mark began sending me frightening notes that he would phone the police and report me as a runaway should I not return, so I blocked his number. 1 month now, and I'm getting by on my own. It's not easy. I'm trying to keep up with school while working extra hours to pay for basic needs including rent. Though I hardly eat some days, it's still better than living under Mark's roof. Though I feel bad about leaving without telling my mother, I also feel as though I had little option. Stress and continual fear were breaking me. So Reddit, am I the moron for leaving the house of my stepfather while my mother was overseas? Should I have pushed more to make things work? Should I get in touch with my mother right now and clarify everything? I'm lost and would much benefit from any guidance. Edit. I appreciate your replies, everybody. Having perused them, I value your help. Many of you have inquired about my housing circumstances and future intentions. I came into a modest studio apartment through a buddy of a friend right now. Though I can hear every movement my neighbors make and the plumbing is erratic, it's safe and reasonably priced. To pay for things, I'm part-time instructing online and working at a nearby diner. Regarding education, I am in my senior year and set to graduate. My school counselor has been in contact with me on my circumstances and has been quite helpful in ensuring I remain on target. Others of you advised getting in touch with other relatives. Sadly, my grandma died a few years ago and my mom was an only kid. After his death, my dad's side of the family lost contact with us. Hence, for the past few years, Mark, my mother and I basically have been the only ones in touch. When my mother gets back, I'm not sure how to handle things. Though another part of me wants to tell her everything, I am afraid she won't believe me or will start to side with Mark once more. When I visit the bridge, I suppose I'll cross it. Right now my priorities are finishing school and keeping afloat. Again, thank you everyone for your wise counsel and polite comments. Update 1. After my first post 6 months ago, a lot has happened. I wanted to let everyone know about current affairs. Last week, my mother got back from a work trip overseas. Though I was anxious about meeting her, I also looked forward to at last clarifying all that had happened with Mark. Still, events did not go as I had intended. The day she returned, I got her on the line. Her voice was icy and hostile, not at all the gentle, caring tone I was accustomed to. She insisted on knowing whether it was accurate that I had fled with money taken from Mark. Startled and perplexed, my mind flew to try to figure out where this charge originated. I tried to describe what actually happened. How Mark had been verbally nasty. How he had threatened to kick me out, and how I left for my own safety and mental health. I informed her about the episode involving my box of personal items and about how Mark had made every day she was gone awful. Still, my mother would not pay attention. She insisted non-stop that Mark had shown her proof of my theft. She was evasive when I asked what proof, mentioning missing money and dubious bank activity. I assured her I had never taken anything in my life. It was all falsehoods. She appeared to have her opinion already formed, even though I reminded her of how honest I had always been with her and how hard I had worked at my part-time job to help the house. To enable us to have a face-to-face conversation, I pleaded with her to meet personally. She accepted under some coaxing, but Mark was with her when we met at a neighborhood cafe. My heart dropped the minute I saw him. Though he looked sad, I could see the triumphant gleam in his eyes. Mark presented me with a show of worry and disappointment. He concocted a story about how he had tried his best to look after me while my mom was away, but that I had grown rebellious and begun pilfering money to pay for a party life. He discussed how he had spotted strange withdrawals from their joint account and how he would have noticed cash missing from his wallet. I stumbled. Though he told it so convincingly, every word he spoke was a lie. He even claimed to have fictitious bank records and invoices proving I had been taking money. Though I'm not sure how he made them, they appeared real enough to mislead my mother. He discussed his attempts to approach me about it, but I had fled instead of dealing with the fallout. I tried furiously to explain my side of the narrative and defend myself. I described how I'd been struggling to make ends meet in my tiny apartment and how I'd been working extra shifts to help myself. I mentioned to them the evenings I would have gone to bed hungry as I cannot afford rent as well as food. I begged my mother to remember how I had always been conscientious with money. How I had never given her any cause to question me before. But Mark had obviously been working on my mother for several weeks prior to her comeback. Her belief of me as a troubled, unappreciative child who had seized advantage of her absence was shaped by his poisoning of her against me. He presented himself as the victim, a worried stepfather limited to helping his wayward stepson. Seeing the sight of disappointment and wrath in my mother's eyes was the worst of it. She said she had trusted me to behave while she was away and she couldn't believe I would treat her this way. She accused me of trying to assign blame and fabricating falsehoods about my loving stepfather when I tried to explain about Mark's behavior. Her voice breaking, "How could you do this to us?" she asked. "We gave you everything, this is how you reimburse us?" Her comments ripped right through, each one like a physical blow. Her own son Mark seemed to me incomprehensible as she believed him over me. My mother informed me at the meeting that she wanted time to consider what to do going forward. If she didn't trust me, she stated she cannot have me back in the house. I watched Mark comfort my mother by putting his arm around her shoulders as they exited the eatery. I got queasy looking at it. I kept trying to get in touch with my mother throughout the next few days, hoping she would listen to me free from Mark's influence. She either answered with brief icy texts instructing me to quit lying and take accountability for my behavior or ignored my calls. I was quite hungry. Hoping they may be able to talk some sense into her, I contacted a few of Mom's friends. Alas, it appeared Mark had also gotten to them. They all told me how let down they felt of me. How they couldn't believe I would have stolen from my own household. My mother finally sent me a lengthy text message stating she had decided it would be better if I stayed away from home. She claimed she needed time to get through everything and that she felt rather let down in me. She advised me not to get in touch for a little while. I felt crushed. Along with losing my house, I had lost my mother, the one I considered to be always on my side. Mark had turned her against her own son by totally controlling her. The next several weeks blurted together. Trying to forget the huge void in my life where my family used to be, I pushed myself into work and education. Often lying awake at night, I struggled to fall asleep and found myself wondering what I could have said better to make my mother believe me. I replayed the talks in my mind. My grades began to slide once more, and I ran the danger of not graduating. It took a worried teacher dragging me aside to get me out of my slide back. She questioned what was wrong when she observed my alterations. Hesitantly at first, I told her all. She thought of me surprisingly. She assisted me in contacting a social professional and a school counselor capable of offering me tools and assistance. Their assistance allowed me to get back on track with my academics and even obtain some extra financial aid to cover living expenses. I'm now figuring out my next moves. Working as hard as I can to support myself, I am still in my little flat. I have contacted a few reliable teachers at the institution who have been encouraging and guiding me through independent finishing of high school. About the future, I'm terrified, angry and wounded. My mother's treachery aches especially, and there are days when the loneliness feels unbearable. But I also want to prove Mark mistaken and show my mother the truth at last. Though I have not given up hope totally, I am not sure if our connection will ever be the same. Right now, I'm mostly planning for college and finishing off high school. Though it won't be simple, I am resolved to lead a better life for myself whether or not my family supports it. I appreciate your support of my original post everywhere. I would really appreciate any guidance on how one might go from here. How might I recover from this betrayal? When I feel so alone, how can I design a life for myself? Any advice would be appreciated. Update 2, 5 years later. My last update 5 years ago and my life has altered drastically. I wanted to let others know what had happened and obtain some viewpoint on a most recent development. After high school, I threw myself into my education and job. Though I still felt the loss of my family hard, I turned that suffering into will. Majoring in computer science, I secured a scholarship at a state institution. I balanced several part-time jobs to make ends meet. Freelancing web design, working at the university library, and even weekend pizza delivery. Though it was demanding, college also released me. Living with Mark, I felt free from the continual anxiety and terror that had dogged me for the first time in years. To help me through the pain of my past, I began visiting a therapist and befriended people who grew to be like family. After graduating with honors, I found work directly out of college at a bright tech startup. Though I worked long hours and under great pressure, the work was challenging and I loved that challenge. Being appreciated for my work ethic and abilities felt fantastic, something I hadn't lately experienced. I have ascended in the company during the last 3 years. Originally a junior developer, the higher-ups were drawn to my commitment and creative ideas. Within a year, I was elevated to team lead. Lately, I was assigned lead developer for our primary offering. Our startup recently attracted a sizable investment, which sent us into the major tech industry ranks. Along with stock options that might be quite valuable should the business keep expanding, this brought a sizable pay rise for me. For the first time in my life, I am comfortable as well as financially steady. Along with moving into a decent apartment and even beginning to save money for the future, I bought my first car. I never spoke with Mark or my mother during this period. Particularly during holidays and events like my college graduation and career promotions, it was difficult. There were evenings when I would lie awake wondering whether my mother ever considered me, whether she ever regretted choosing Mark above me. But I concentrated on starting a new life for me and assembling a selected family including mentors and close friends. Out of the blue last week, I got a call from an unidentified number. My response caused a hush, then I heard a voice I hadn't heard 5 years ago. Mom was it. Her voice sounded worn out and desperate, nothing like the confident, loving mother I knew from my early years. She informed me Mark and she were having money problems. Mark apparently had some poor investments, and their property was about to go under foreclosure. Mark has been unemployed for the past year since his company he worked for filed for bankruptcy. They were drowning in debt after devouring their savings. My mother said she was sorry for all that had transpired years ago. Her voice broke as she said she had come to see Mark had controlled her over time. She admitted she had been carrying guilt for years and she regretted not trusting me. She asked whether we might get together to try to heal our relationship and to go over things. I froze. I had dreamed of this for years, my mother recognizing the truth and reaching out to re-establish contact. Now that it was occurring though, I experienced a rush of emotions, optimism, resentment, grief, and residual betrayal. After a protracted silence, I decided to see her at a cafe, the same one where we had our confrontation 5 years earlier. It startled me to find Mark and my mother there when I got there. With her grayed hair and worried lined face, my mother seemed older and exhausted. Mark's shoulders dropped and his eyes downcast suggested he had lost the cocky air he formerly possessed. More specifically, they said they were months behind on their mortgage payments and that the bank threatened to seize their residence. When his company closed, Mark lost his career. Even now, he has struggled to find consistent employment. Teacher pay for my mother was insufficient to pay living expenses and debt. I observed as they spoke the dynamic between them had altered. Often breaking off or correcting Mark, my mother looked more forceful. Mark, on the other hand, seemed subdued, a far cry from the dominant man I recalled. The true reason they reached out was to ask whether I might provide them loans to enable them to get back on their feet. Having heard through mutual friends about my achievements in the tech sector, they thought I would be in a position to be of use. Sitting there, I listened to their appeal and experienced a range of feelings. Part of me felt vindicated. Years ago Mark had lied and exploited the circumstances, and at last they were owning this. Another side of me, though, was resentment at their only outreach when they required something from me. Mom grabbed my hand in hers across the table. Tears in her eyes. I know we don't deserve your help, she added. We are desperate even though what we did to you was awful. We have nowhere else to turn. Mark joined in, his voice missing the assurance it had previously possessed. I know you have every cause to hate me, he continued. I treated you cruelly. I let everything be poisoned by my insecurity and jealousy. Though I am really sorry for what I did, I am not asking for pardon. Their apologies set off past hurts and memories. I considered the lonely evenings in my small apartment, battling poverty. I recalled the sense of betrayal when my own mother decided to accept a falsehood instead of her son's reality. I told them I needed time to consider it once they had finished speaking and inhaled deeply. I promised nothing when I left the cafe. Their begging gaze trailed after me. I'm divided now. One hand, I have worked hard for my accomplishment and I do not believe I owe them anything based on their treatment of me. Mark's falsehoods ruined my bond with my mother and drove me to fend for myself when young. Part of me wants to turn away and let them deal with the results of their behavior. Still, even with everything, I worry about my mother. Though I worry that if I assist her, I would be exposing myself to more manipulation or demands of continuous support. The idea of her being homeless or struggling hurts my heart. The way this could affect my own financial stability worries me as well. I'm not sure whether I could afford to save them without sacrificing my own future, even if right now I'm doing great. The startup scene is erratic, hence my present success is not sure to last. One more issue is forgiveness. Can I really get beyond what transpired? After such a great betrayal, is it possible to repair a relationship with my mother? And then regarding Mark. Can I ever trust him or have him back in my life even as he apologies? Unable to decide, I have been debating these questions for the past week. I discussed it with my closest friends and even mentioned it in a session with my therapist. Though everyone has different ideas, finally they all say the same: it is my decision to make. Part of me is driven to be a great person and offer an olive branch of support. Perhaps this is the first step toward mending past hurts and reconstructing my relationship with my mother. Another side of me, meanwhile, is terrified of subjecting myself to the suffering I have so battled once more. So on Reddit, I find myself wondering once more: am I bad if I refuse to assist my mother and stepdad financially following all that has happened? Should I provide them another chance or guard the life I have created or myself? I could really appreciate some outside view because I find myself at a crossroads. My stepmother abused my fiancé's young brother, causing a family rift that threatens to destroy our wedding and relationships forever. Original post: mention of child Abu *e. It's not too graphic, but it's there. I tried posting this on AITA through a different account a couple days ago, but it didn't work out. Given the trigger warning, I'm not surprised. I have since concluded my wife and I did the right thing, so this will be my last attempt to post this story. I tried to add some info and change the wording a little. All names are fake. My 28M stepmother, 49F, is a wannabe party planner. She has taken it upon herself to plan and host every party and holiday my dad's family has thrown since she married him. I never loved those occasions growing up. She's controlling and gets upset if people complain about anything, but humored her for my dad's sake. According to him, this helps her feel included. I'm getting married to my fiancée Jane, 26F, in July. We got engaged in early 2021, but Jane ended up getting pregnant a couple months after that, and we decided to postpone the wedding to focus on our son for a while. So we've had a long engagement. My stepmother has tried to hijack our wedding plans from day one, complaining, contacting our planner, showing up unannounced to Jane's dress appointments, etc. And we have repeatedly asked her to stop. Dad wants us to humor her, but she's clearly resentful of the fact that she's not hosting the wedding or being labeled mother of the groom in invitations. Besides our baby boy, we also have Luke, 4M, Jane's paternal half-brother. She got custody of him a few months into our relationship, after his parents died. I ended up moving in with them during the pandemic, and have been in Luke's life since he was a baby. He doesn't call me dad, and refers to us as his sister and his OP, but we love him like a son. Stepmother though hates Luke. She accuses Jane of baby-trapping her way into the family. That accusation only got worse after our son was born. My dad gets along with Jane and adores the kids, but stepmother demands him to refuse babysitting Luke, so we don't leave the kids with them often. Instead, Jane's brother and CL usually watch the kids for us, as their children are close to ours in age. We had a thing last Sunday, and my Bill was out of town with his family. Jane's other siblings live in different cities, as well as my mom and sister. My dad agreed to babysit at our place and we left. We came back to find both kids crying, stepmother screaming, and dad weakly trying to calm everyone down. Apparently, Luke had told stepmother that both he and our son were going to be our ring bearers, and she went ballistic. She screamed that she wasn't going to allow that because he wasn't family. She then made me need to include the trigger warning when he started crying. His lip is still split. She'd never gotten to this point before. We immediately banned her from our house and from our wedding. Dad is fuming and has said he's not going without her. He's also convinced half of his side of the family, by severely downplaying what stepmother did, to boycott the wedding as well. This includes my stepbrother, who fully agrees with his mother no matter how many times I try to tell him the truth. Me and Jane are refusing to budge, but many of my cousins who aren't coming anymore are asking us to reconsider. Pretty much all of Jane's family agrees with us, but one of her aunts has suggested that maybe stepmother is acting out because she doesn't feel welcomed by my family. I've honestly had it with my family enabling her behavior. I love my dad and really want him at my wedding, but I am more than willing to go NC if it means protecting my family. Edit. I think I accidentally deleted the paragraph where I mentioned this, but we did press charges. We took Luke to the pediatrician the next day and gathered every piece of evidence we had. Not only did we have pictures of Luke's face, but by some miraculous strike of luck, We also had nanny cam footage. Some commenters were right to assume that my SM hadn't been invited to our house, but my dad hasn't really gone anywhere without her in years, so we took precautions. We didn't expect her to actually do anything this awful, but we've never trusted her with the kids. The physical attack happened off camera, but there is some footage of her screaming and Luke crying before and after the event. She now has a child abuse charge on her rap sheet. We wouldn't let her get away with this. Edit 2. There is a lot of additional info I want to add. I'll try to respond to at least some of the comments. I did not expect the amount I've gotten so far, but all I'll add for now is that Luke is okay. The visit to the pediatrician happened the day after. He already had a counselor. Jane was pretty traumatized when her dad and stepmom died, and was worried it would rub off on him, and will continue treatment. We've been hugging and pampering him a little more than usual too. He's still upset, but is already doing much better. Update 1. I want to thank everybody who took the time to read and/or comment on my previous post. It's been a tough week, but it's always great to know that people care. I haven't been able to reply to every comment, but I will try to address some in this update. This might get a little long. I'll start off by saying that me and Jane are going NC with my dad and SM. We haven't really spoken to either of them since the incident, and I don't plan on being the one to reach out. Any communication between us is being handled by my younger sister. She's completely on our side, but will remain in low contact for the time being. I've decided to adopt Jane's way of dealing with people she cares about. Forgive what's apologized for, but never forget. Basically, if Dad or SM ever truly understand what they did wrong and sincerely apologize, we're willing to forgive them. Even if begrudgingly so, but we will never ignore, or let them forget, what they did to our family. And for the time being, neither of them will be allowed near Luke, our baby, and any other kids we may have in the future, even if we do forgive them. As for the rest of my family, I read a lot of comments suggesting that I post pictures of Luke's face, as well as the nanny cam footage. I'm not very active on social media, but even if I was, I'm not comfortable exposing my injured preschooler like that, especially given that nothing on the internet ever truly goes away. I also decided not to share the pictures with my family unless truly necessary. I should probably mention that while my family adores my dad, most of them aren't very fond of SM. She had 2 failed marriages prior to meeting my father, the first of which resulted in my stepbrother, and he cheated on his then girlfriend to be with her. My family loved that girlfriend and disliked SM right away. Not only has she been controlling and manipulative since the beginning, she's also tried to force her way into the family matriarch role by any means possible. Taking over planning duties for every family event was her favorite way to do it, because of all the attention and compliments that come with it. The main reason why I hated these parties growing up was because she'd always find a way to make everything about her, including Christmas and mine and my sister's birthdays. The rest of the family felt neutral about it, but they never liked her. With Luke, it was different. Most of my relatives didn't meet him until COVID restrictions got looser, and by then he was 2 years old. He's a bright and genuinely lovable kid, and there weren't really any other small children in the family, so everyone immediately started cooing over him. The way I see it, SM got upset that Jane and Luke were accepted by my family so easily compared to her experience, and that's why she resents them both, but I can't confirm that. She was also mad that, aside from not being the planner, she would have absolutely no involvement in the wedding party. She tried to pressure us into letting her officiate. One of Jane's best friends was offered that role a year ago, making stepbrother my best man. He wasn't interested and I'd already gotten my best friend. Or asking her sister's daughter to be our flower girl. We'd promised Jane's 3-year-old niece. Also, her sister's daughter is 15 and doesn't know us. She also tried to convince us to let my dad walk Jane down the aisle, since her father's gone, but her eldest brother, the Bill I mentioned in the first post, had already been enlisted. SM was disappointed that my family wasn't as involved in the wedding as Jane's, and kept making comments about how that would never happen if we put her in charge. All of that being said, there's nothing that can excuse being that awful to a child, especially if it really is the petty jealousy that I suspect. Because I haven't spoken with my father, my sister has been keeping me updated on what he's been up to. As I found out through her, the story my dad and SM told the rest of the family completely erases Luke's injury and the abuse charges. It insinuates that me and Jane banned them because we got annoyed with SM and decided to take it out on my dad as well. Because most people already disliked SM, explaining what actually happened that night wasn't hard, and most of the relatives that I actually wanted at the wedding have apologized and are berating my dad as well. The people that didn't believe us, as well as those saying we overreacted, have been told they are not welcome in our home anymore. Those are mostly people from my dad's generation, so I can't say I'm surprised. But the realization that they are so biased they're willing to protect a woman they hate, after she hurt a child, just to make my dad happy has reassured me that I don't need any of them in my life. Stepbrother is still in denial. He refuses to believe his mother could hurt a child, even with all the evidence we have. I have to admit I understand. I love my mom too, but that doesn't mean I'd excuse his obliviousness. So he's banned too. It sucks, because we were close growing up, but I don't regret it. Besides, Jane has 3 other siblings besides Luke, the older Bill, a twin brother and a younger sister, and I'm closer to them than I ever was to him. Speaking of Jane's family, they're all furious over what happened, and have been extremely supportive of us. Jane's maternal family basically adopted Luke after she got custody of him, and have called frequently to make sure he's okay. We did manage to save some money with everybody we uninvited, and have decided to use it to help Jane's cousin. She lives in a different country, and was previously unable to come to the wedding, so we're paying for her plane ticket. Luke has gotten much better, and is almost completely back to being the sunny child he's always been. The split lip was shallow. It's healing slowly, but didn't require any stitches. We sat him down a few days ago, and explained that my dad and stepmonster wouldn't be around anymore. He really liked my dad, but understands that he and SM are attached at the hip. He's clearly scared of her, but we're doing our best to make him feel safe. Me and Jane have reassured him that he is family, we love him, and no one will ever change that. I'm not too worried about Dad or SM trying to show up at the wedding, but we've alerted the venue and given them pictures just in case they try anything. Better safe than sorry. Some people brought attention to the fact that SM is a hypocrite for saying Luke isn't family. I agree, for obvious reasons. Her main excuse for pretty much everything she does is that she doesn't feel like my family welcomes her. Dad has been guilting me to take part in everything she plans by reminding us of that for as long as I can remember. The way he continues to make excuses for her without realizing this is basically a case of the pot calling the kettle black, except Luke actually is family, is what has made me accept that, while I will always love my dad, it's not healthy or safe for me and my family to be around him anymore. It hurts to know my son won't have his only remaining bio-grandfather in his life, but he has 2 amazing step-grandpas to make up for it. For now, I'm sad, but satisfied with how things have turned out. I don't like to complain about my life. It's a mess, but a beautiful one. I love my fiancé, I love my kids, and I'm lucky enough to love my job. We're happy. I'm not letting anyone ruin that. To whoever was annoyed at my censorship. When posting on AITA didn't work out, Jane suggested I make the writing less explicit. I'm not used to Reddit yet, so I might have overdone it a little bit. I hope this is my last update on this story, but I'll keep you posted. Again, thank you for all your love and support. Best wishes to all of you. Relevant comments from OOP. The only reason why I know that this is the first time she's hit him is because this was the first and last time she was with the kids unsupervised. Me and Jane were around every previous time she saw Luke. She didn't want my dad to babysit him, and we'd only asked him to on a few occasions before. My sister was still living with them at the time, and has assured me that Luke was never out of her sight. I know and trust my sister enough to believe her. First time or not, I will not give her a second chance. She'll never hurt either of my kids again. OOP when told to secure passwords with all vendors. We've actually had passwords with the vendors since day one. Some of the earlier ones we met actually recommended us to do it. SM did contact our planner a while back saying she had our approval to talk to our vendors. She didn't let her, and we got a bit more strict with passwords after that. Commenter, so is SM serving any jail time? If she attacked a child then and you guys pressed charges, I would imagine she would have to be processed and eventually serve some time for her crime. OOP, we hope so. We're setting up a date for the arraignment. Commenter. Start a file for SM. Keep any and all texts, voicemails and attempts of her communicating. Do the same with anyone who has taken her side because she could escalate, and you may need that info. Those people are flying monkeys and she's sent them to not only plead her case, but report back to her the things you may have told them so she can continue to play her victim card. You were great to have the nanny cam, but should also make sure to notify his daycare or school that she is not to be given info or access to him. Get cameras that have audio just in case she shows up at your house and password protect all of your wedding vendors and let them know not to give her any info and to notify you if she tries. Your dad may be harmless, but she's not. OOP. That second advice is something we've been pretty occupied with, actually. This past week has been mostly about the kids and collecting evidence, but I'll definitely check out the JN Mill sub. Commenter, did you say that if your father and stepmonster apologize that you will allow them at your wedding? I wasn't quite sure what you were saying. OOP, absolutely not. My father and SM are not welcome at the wedding, no matter the circumstances. They could offer me an island and I'd still refuse to let them come back into our lives right now. I only plan to forgive anything far off in the future, and only if they apologize sincerely. Even then, they will have no access to the kids for years after that. Knowing SM, I highly doubt she'll ever feel sorry for what she did, so we're not counting on it anyway. Update 2. I'll start off by, probably, disappointing a lot of people. We're coming to terms with the fact that it's unlikely SM will get anything more than a slap on the wrist. Me and Jane are discussing our next move with our lawyer, but we're still not sure how we're going to move forward. It's too early to tell anyway, so we're trying not to get ahead of ourselves any more than we already have. However, I'm relieved to announce that we're getting started on the process for a restraining order against SM. We're using the same evidence we gathered the week following the incident, including the nanny cam footage and pictures of Luke, and we'll focus on that for the time being. I still haven't spoken to my father. My sister is still in LC, but is seriously considering cutting ties with him. Because my sister is the only one on my side that still talks to him, my father keeps trying to ask her about me, and whether I've calmed down yet. According to her, he's annoyed that half of his family refuses to talk to him, but still doesn't seem to accept why. I told my sister that she doesn't need to keep playing messenger pigeon between me and our father. I never asked her to do it, and it's clearly taking a toll on her. But she insists she'll stop when it feels right. By the way, there's absolutely no doubt whether SM attacked Luke. Not only did Luke say at the moment we got home, but that was also confirmed by my father in a failed attempt to defend her behavior. He never tried to hide it from us. That, and the fact that he gave Luke an ice bag, is literally the only positive thing I can say about his actions. And SM was too busy screaming about how much of a whining brat Luke was being to deny it. To those who guessed SM is younger than my dad, you get an invisible cookie. She's also 5 years younger than his previous girlfriend. They got together when I was around 15. Also, my stepbrother is only a month older than me. She turns 50 later this year, had him at 21, married his father a year later. Both our kids are doing mostly okay. Luke's back to running around the house in his Superman costume whenever he doesn't have anything better to do. He did have a few nightmares this past week, and is asked to sleep on our bed twice. We don't mention my father around him, and he's still seeing his counselor. Our 14-month-old son has learned 2 new words, hi and bye, and Luke is trying to teach him to say his name. Jane's sister, who moved away for college, is coming over for a couple days to celebrate her 21st birthday later this month. Luke's excited to see her, and Jane's excited to get drunk with her. Can't say I blame her. We're hoping her presence will cheer us all up. I'm not doing so good, and neither is Jane. She's usually the kind of person who tries to keep her negative emotions to herself, but she cried herself to sleep almost every night the week it happened. It breaks my heart to see her like that, and I can't help but feel like this is my fault. There's a part of me trying to tell myself I had no way of knowing SM would do anything like that, but that doesn't really change anything. I allowed my father near my kids unsupervised, even though I knew she'd probably tag along. This is the guiltiest I've ever felt, and I don't think I'll ever forgive myself. Jane has been improving lately, and is trying to convince me to see a therapist. I've never really done that before, apart from a psychiatrist when I was younger, but now feels like a good time to give it a try. I was surprised by a few messages this week from people telling me to forgive my father and SM, as well as re-invite them to the wedding. That's not happening. In fact, I'm not willing to ever forgive SM. My dad has now degraded to a huge maybe, but I will never understand or forget what she did. Also, though the wedding is the last thing on our minds right now, we're not postponing it. We considered rescheduling, but the date we'd settled on is pretty much the only one that works for our guests. We have passwords with all our vendors, and gave them all clear instructions not to talk to anyone but us. Jane's family is bigger and closer to each other, which is why they're more involved in the wedding than mine, but I do have family participating. My sister is one of the bridesmaids, 2 of my cousins are groomsmen, and my mom is walking down the aisle with the wedding party. Going through all of this with Jane has made me understand even more just how much I love this woman. I couldn't ask for a better partner to start a family with, and I have no idea what I'd do without her. This didn't tear us apart, and I couldn't be more thankful. I probably won't make any more updates until after the wedding, unless something big happens. In the meantime, as always, best wishes to all of you. Update 3. I didn't plan on updating again before the wedding, but something pretty huge happened. The good news is we got the RO. The bad news is me and Jane had to see both SM and my father at the court hearing. This was our first time seeing them since we kicked them out of our house over a month ago, and neither of us were looking forward to it. We left the kids with Jane's brother and Sil, So at least Luke didn't have to see them. The hearing itself went a lot quicker than I expected. I'll give credit where it's due. My father was, at the very least, smart enough to understand there was no way they were winning this. There was a lot of evidence against them. Not only did we have the nanny cam footage and Luke's pictures and medical record, but my sister had also gathered every text and email SM had sent her and the family about what happened. And SM hates speaking on the phone, so there were a lot of those. They didn't even bother to get an attorney for the hearing. The judge granted us a protection order against SM. She's not allowed within 500 feet of us or our property anymore. We're changing all our locks this week, and I'm thinking about changing my phone number as well. I have to admit, the moment we left the courthouse was the safest I'd felt since this whole ordeal started. Jane was close to tearing up with joy when we got to the car. We picked up the kids and went to McDonald's with Bill and his family to celebrate. Hours later, my father called me. The order doesn't extend to him, so he can still do that. Jane and the kids were in bed, so I answered. I didn't expect him to change his mind and apologize all of a sudden, but decided to give him one last chance. He tried to start some awkward small talk, but I told him to get to the point. He asked me if the order was truly necessary. I stated, very clearly, that SM was never coming near Jane or my children again, and that I was glad I had an RO to formalize that. Every excuse he had for SM was pretty easy to shut down, but she only hit him once. Yep, and that's enough for me. The kids need their grandma. She's not their grandma, Mom is. She's my wife. You need to respect her. She attacked Luke. She disrespected my family in my own house. I don't owe her anything, least of all my respect. He then went on a rant about family, how much of a godsend SM was and everything she'd done for me and my sister since she came into our lives. I replied by listing every time I could remember about her lying, overstepping a boundary or acting unhinged around me, my family or my sister. I brought up both my adult life and my youth. Examples included her attempts to hijack most of our milestones, recently, our wedding plans, our son's birth, Jane's baby shower and my sister's college graduation. Her obsession with the idea of a perfect family, and her disgusting attitude towards Luke. I also made sure to mention her habits of going through mine and my sister's stuff when we were younger. It's trivial, compared to everything else, but this behavior went on until my sister moved out of their house, only 3 months ago. We're pretty sure she found out about Jane's wedding dress appointments by reading my sister's planner while she wasn't home, for instance. Some of the memories I mentioned are long and hard to explain, but they did cement the fact that SM means nothing to me. He tried to go with the whole, she doesn't feel included excuse again, but I shut him up. I said he'd had the opportunity to protect his grandchildren, but had chosen his monster of a wife instead, and that's enough for me to want nothing to do with him. I hung up without saying goodbye. My sister told me he called her afterwards, and she told him she was going NC with him as well. I think we're both starting to accept our father won't change. It sucks, but he's made his priorities clear, and his children and grandkids aren't among them. For now, that's it. Now that they're fresh in my mind, I'm thinking about sharing some of the stories I reminded my father of, but that's gonna take a while. Until then, as always, best wishes to all of you. Relevant comments. Commenter, but she only hit him once would have ended the phone call for me. OOP, I almost hung up on him when he said that. The only reason I didn't was because I knew I wasn't gonna talk to him again anytime soon, and I still had a lot to say. Commenter. I am curious how your stepbrother is handling all of this. Like, the RO is something you can't just push away. A judge stated that what his mother did was so terrible she needed to stay away from those children. It just feels like something you can't stick your head in the sand and claim that you could never believe that your mother could hurt someone like that. OOP, I haven't spoken to him since days before the RO, and he hasn't tried to contact me or my sister. He was still in denial last time we talked, but seemed a bit doubtful. TBH, I think he's the only one who isn't a complete lost cause and still has a slight chance of coming around. He's still banned, but I might be willing to talk to him about this whole thing. Commenter. Holy hell. If you are comfortable sharing, I know many of us would want to hear those hijacking stories. Hope the kids don't have too terribly long an impact on their life from this, especially the preschooler. OOP. Luke hasn't mentioned her in a while. I don't doubt he was affected by this, but I think he understands everything is okay now. Our baby is barely a year old. And if it's up to me, he won't even know she exists until he's grown. I'll definitely share some of the stories as soon as I can bring myself to write them down. Commenter. It's crazy how the court gave your dad a chance not to give him the protection order and you gave him a chance to explain on the phone and he still managed to screw up. You guys gave so many chances and your dad fails to see that SM is a bad person. Your dad doesn't seem like he's going to change, and until he does, somehow stop giving him more chances. OP, that was his last chance, and he blew it. If he ever comes around, and that's a big if, it'll still take me a long time to allow him back into our lives. Update 4. After being engaged for over 2 years, me and Jane finally got married last Saturday. We're still getting used to calling each other husband and wife, but we'll get there. Hopefully. The wedding was awesome. The kids had fun, our extended families finally met, and we danced so much I could barely stand the next day. Luke took his ring-bearer duties seriously, and held my son's hand as they walked down the aisle. Besides my aunt getting shit-faced and being let out on a wheelchair, which I already thought would happen anyway, everything went according to plan. It's been 4 months since we got the RO against SM. Things have been mostly quiet, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Except completely quiet, but we can't always get what we want. I never really worried about SM showing up at the wedding, especially after the RO. It's literally illegal for her to come close to us, and we made it very clear that if she tried, we'd call the cops right away. My friends still warned me to take safety measures, most of which I did. SM didn't show up, of course, but I'm a strong believer that any money spent on security is well spent, so no regrets on that end. My stepbrother and I wished each other happy birthdays, and he also texted Jane on hers back in June. That's the only contact we've had during these months. He knows that the door is still open if he wants to apologize. My dad has given up on trying to reach me. We haven't spoken since April. He's still trying to talk to my sister, for some reason, but she's ignoring him. A few days after she went NC with him, they had a huge fight over the phone about SM's treatment of us over the years. Insults were thrown, sore subjects were brought up, and, most importantly, my father took SM's side on almost everything. My sister called me crying afterwards. I wanted to call him and yell at him, but she told me not to. She's doing okay now. She hasn't blocked him, but doesn't take his calls or answer his texts. She's only gotten 3, a weak apology, one on my birthday back in May, and a long rant after neither of us wished him a happy Father's Day. After all, despite our differences, he's still our father. He's not wrong. I love my father, and I always will, but I can't be around him anymore. While I've closed that door, I'm not locking it just yet. He knows what he needs to do if he wants his family back. I don't think he'll do it, but if there's the slightest chance he might, I'll consider opening the door an inch or two. This is my wife's suggestion. I'm a lot less optimistic than she is, but maybe it's important to hold on to that hope. She hasn't forgiven him though. Or SM. Jane has always been very protective of Luke, so it was no surprise that this disaster shook her. A part of me was scared she'd blame me, but she called me a dumbass when I told her that. I've been in therapy for a few months, and it's helped a lot more than I thought it would. I've realized SM's behavior around me growing up was a lot worse than I always thought, and it's great to finally be able to get my feelings off my chest. Right now, I'm more than happy. I just married the most amazing woman ever, and I have the family I always dreamed of. None of us are perfect, but I never thought life would be this great to me. I'll stick around. Reddit is a lot more than I expected, but I can sleep peacefully now, so it's safe to say this will be my last update on this. Thank you all for the kindness and advice you gave me these months. I could have never expected the support I got from you guys, and I can't begin to describe how helpful it was. Seriously, thank you all. Edit 3 days later. Okay, I updated too soon. I didn't want to write another post, so I'll just add this here. My stepbrother called me earlier today. Apparently, he and SM had a fight and he wants to meet up. I agreed as long as it was just the two of us. We're meeting up for coffee on Wednesday. I have no idea what to expect, but even if he does apologize, I need to know he understands how and why he let us down. New update. Hey guys. I've been away from Reddit for a few months, due to some stuff at work. But a lot of people have been messaging me about my stepbrother, so I want to give you a small update. I've been busy and tired these days, so I might gloss over some details. Feel free to ask me anything. I first met my stepbrother for coffee back in August. He'd had a fight with SM and the RO was brought up. She'd lied to him about some details, accusing Luke of picking on my baby, badmouthing Jane and more, but this time, he managed to force her to tell him the truth. My stepbrother started to reevaluate his relationship with his mother. After talking to his therapist and his friends about it, as well as the way she'd raised him, he finally accepted I wasn't exaggerating about what she did to Luke. He wanted to talk to me back in June, but didn't want to distract me and Jane from the wedding. Me and my stepbrother spent the last 4 months working on rebuilding our relationship. We've been meeting for coffee or lunch and discussing his mother and what she did to our lives and my kids. Jane started joining us in October, and the kids saw him again for the first time 2 weeks ago. Things were awkward between us for a while, but we're good now. He's also making amends with my sister. In early November, he completely cut contact with SM. Jane and the kids are doing amazing. Luke turned 5 in September, and our baby will be 2, holy crap, in early February. We're spending the holidays with Jane's family in Brazil, while my stepbrother stays with his girlfriend. Things are great, that's all. I'm signing off for now. I'll let you know if anything happens. Happy holidays, everyone. Best wishes to all of you. The golden child brother got my fiancée pregnant. After 5 years, he is in a coma, and my mom has asked me to step in as the father for his child. 5 years ago, only a month before I, now 30, was scheduled to get married to my fiancée, I discovered she had been seeing my brother. They came clean to me about it only because she wanted to keep the baby and was pregnant. Apparently ever after Karen and I were engaged, my ex-fiancée Karen, 30F, and brother Chris, 33M, had been sleeping together. Getting engaged was certainly the next step, since Karen and I had been dating since our junior year of high school and had stayed together through college as well. Still, she chose to cheat on me with my brother once we became engaged. The only reason that ever happened was that a few days following our engagement, my brother told her he had always harbored her and felt he had to tell her since she was getting married. He was unable to tell her anything regarding these emotions thereafter. She then became aware all of a sudden that she had also been progressively developing emotions for him. She had stayed with me since she was hesitant about him, apparently even flirting behind my back occasionally at family events and other gatherings. 5 years ago, just a few months before my wedding, I got to know all these things when the two of them sat me down along with my parents and informed me they were intending on getting together. Karen was in love with Chris and they were expecting a baby together, so she could no longer wed me. That day, I was rather agitated, nearly refusing to accept it, and told Karen I wanted her to accompany me home and break this relationship, whatever it was, with Chris. But my mother made it really clear that Chris and Karen would be together and that nothing of the kind was going to happen. Since it was finally their choice, I simply had to find peace with it. That my mother was endorsing anything like this astounds me even now. At least my dad had the decency to appear ashamed and try to comfort me, but my mother openly backed this and even told me that if I objected, I could keep it to myself since Karen was pregnant and I had no right to disturb her in such a delicate state. My mother hardly cared about what I was going through, as she was simply insane over at last having a grandchild in the family. She battled with me tooth and nail to defend the behavior under question. Following the incident that day, Karen moved in with my family as her own parents stopped wanting to talk to her once she told them the truth. Obviously, we had to call off the wedding. My parents paid for it so I wouldn't have to worry about that either. But I refused to talk to the family, hence I was kicked out. We have had absolutely zero touch over the last 5 years. My father is the only person who even cared to attempt and get in touch with me. Unfortunately, I was not interested in talking to him either, hence there has been radio silence from their end since I severed contact with them. Karen and I had been together for a very long period, hence it took me a very long time to recover what had occurred to me. I had really loved her, hence it took a lot of therapy to get over it. Even today, I wouldn't say I'm really over it, but I'm handling it. Still, the rest of the family kept in contact with me and I did learn from them that she had a son with my brother. There was no need to get in touch with her after that either, as a paternity test verified that it was my brother's child rather than mine just 1 month after she gave birth. They spent the past 5 years together and finally got married. My mother contacted me out of the blue about a week ago, which surprised me since she had been the one most in favor of Karen and Chris, like to an unhealthy degree. I had assumed everything was going well for them. Curious just a bit, I decided to contact her back when she emailed me stating she had to talk to me immediately. She cried and conveyed some quite awful news when I phoned her. I found out that my brother had suffered a quite catastrophic accident. It was a hit-and-run case, and sadly, the impact caused him to fall into a coma. The exact length of recovery is unknown. This had happened last week. Just 3 days after the physicians reported things were somewhat severe, my mother decided to give me a call to let me know about it. Initially, I assumed she would want me to see him and be there for the family. I would have been willing to comply since, in spite of all, I believe this is a major issue and it would have still been a fair expectation. I would not want to turn my back on someone in such a horrible state. Then my mother turned completely another way and declared she wanted me to be with Karen and my nephew. Then mother informed me she now expected me to be there for them in my brother's place. I had no idea what that meant either. She informed me that because Chris was essentially not even there anymore, I had to be there for Karen and her child in any manner whatsoever. When I asked her to explain, She expected me to jump in and live with them so I could look after them, not only financially. She claimed she would have taken them in herself, but she was not getting younger and caring for all of them would be too much effort. She was phoning me to let me know this, and she wanted me to decide on the call itself. I clearly lost my cool as she avoided me for 5 years and now wanted me to do something so significant when she was finally speaking to me. Although Karen and her son were all on their own right now and they needed someone to be there for them, I could see that someone from their close family would have been more suited for her than me. Someone she had betrayed and then not even tried to apologize to. Clearly, I told my mother right away that I was not going to do such a thing and that she was stupid for ever expecting me to say yes to that. Then she began fighting with me over the phone, and I had little time to spend. I immediately hung up and then blocked her once more as I was already somewhat annoyed and I wanted to not let her further sour my attitude. After that, I tried to go about my daily business but I couldn't stop thinking about what Chris and Karen were going through. I felt terrible for them. That was really strange. Thus I clearly was not going to follow what my mother had asked me to and substitute my brother for their family. He was still alive. He had just fallen asleep, but it was not as though he had died already. She was acting as though he had disappeared. I believed that my father would be more rational than my mother, so later that day I chose to phone him instead as I was feeling very lightheaded over this whole situation. After 5 years of no contact, it was somewhat strange to chat to him. Yet after some brief conversation, I asked Chris how he was doing. Right now, he told me, things were not looking very well. Then I expected him to have some decent understanding when I told him about the earlier that day talk I had with my mother. Rather, he also added, my mother was correct to have expectations of me. That truly surprised me since, out of both my parents, my dad was always the more cool-headed one. Now even he was saying such strange things. He said that Karen and I had a history nonetheless and that I am also part of the family regardless of our former 5-year relationship. He stated he truly meant that. In the end I am blood. If someone else could stand up for the family, it should be me and my mother's expectations are not particularly illogical. And right now I'm not sure what to do. I have been avoiding talking to anyone from my family, including my other relatives, for the past week since I am simply worried that someone would bring this up with me and subsequently I would be obliged to justify my choices. Since I'm not stepping up for my family and I know they truly need me, if not financially, then at least emotionally, I also sort of feel like the bad guy here. Simply said, I'm not sure what to do. Though I know my mother is asking of me something quite strange and illogical, I feel guilty for turning it down straight away. I just feel so strange about this whole thing. I haven't even been down to the hospital to see my brother. Since all of this is so intimate, neither have I been able to discuss this with any of my friends. Although they understand how things have been between my family and me ever since my wedding was put off, this is somewhat more unusual than that. To be honest, right now I'm sharing this on Reddit since I truly believe I need some objective advice on what to do. Whether it's friends or relatives, everyone will have some kind of biased view. I truly need guidance as, without a workable answer to all of this shortly, I fear losing my sanity. Since I discovered Karen had been cheating on me, I really feel like I'm returning to the time of my life when I was obsessing about her and Chris. I don't want to go back to that very dark period since it has taken a lot of time to get out of. Thus, whatever anyone has to say, kindly let me know so I may at least divert myself from the harshness of the opinion. So am I the expletive, for not visiting my family and supporting them following an accident involving my brother. Update 1. Hey buddies, I decided not to visit my family right now. Right now, it is quite too much for me. The things my parents were telling me alone let me realize just how severe my anxiousness had gotten over the past week. But right now I'm back on my anti-anxiety medicines and attempting to handle things. In the comments area of my initial article and even individually in my DMs, to let me know that they are there for me and that I am not alone, a lot of people have showered me with love and support which I'm extremely grateful for. Since I truly don't think I could handle all of this on my own, I have also confided in a few of my close friends about what is happening. They have also advised me to talk to them anytime I need to simply let it all out. They have also advised me that, for now, my decision to not go and meet them is the right one to make since it is the best one I could make right now for me. No matter what else people are going through in life, I have to prioritize myself. Chris and my family have always put themselves first, hence I should likewise do the same. To be honest, I hardly believe I should be there for them emotionally either. They can each handle this on their own, they have one other. After the wedding was called off and I discovered I'd been betrayed, I was the one with absolutely no one from my immediate family at my side. Though he was the one who had been in the wrong, my own parents had turned against me and had chosen my brother over me. Out of the family, he ought to have gone missing first. Still, that's only past. I'm attempting to go on from that. Should I return to them once more, I will not be able to accomplish it successfully. I have thus blocked all of them once more and will keep to my choice of not interacting with them. I truly regret what happened to my brother, but I hope he recovers quickly as, no matter what he has done, I cannot be the person wishing anything negative to happen to anyone. I thus hope things work out for them, but I am out of here. Right now, I'm just paying close attention to my own mental health. I'm thinking of returning to treatment. The way I handled this and the comments from my parents got under my skin. All those old emotions are resurfacing once more, hence I truly believe I should consult a professional since I don't think I'm handling all of this as well as I thought I was. I therefore simply now am looking out for myself. Update 2. I thus learned from a few relatives that my brother's condition is really severe and that it is not exhibiting any improvement. He still resides in the hospital. It has been almost 2 weeks. Although I feel horrible for the family as their situation is extremely terrible, there is not much I could do. Apart from myself, everyone who knows my family has dropped by the hospital to see my brother at least once in the previous 2 weeks and pay their sympathies for the horrible disaster that has happened. I would have done that, but then I also discovered via my relatives that my parents have been disparaging me to anyone who has been visiting them and projecting me as a terrible man. They seem to be telling everyone they begged me to come see them and be there for the family. But I had objected and said things like this was retribution for screwing me over 5 years back and my brother deserved this. For the record's sake, I clearly said nothing of the kind. Since I'm usually a friendly person to everyone, some of them got in touch to ask whether this was true or not since it seemed like nothing I would say. When they questioned me about it, I clearly informed them that my parents were fabricating it to make it seem like I was a horrible person, probably to get a reaction out of me or maybe simply because that's the type of people my parents are. Not that I said these things. Especially after already having screwed up my life once, I was simply quite let down that people were saying such things about me and fabricating stories only to present me as the evil guy. I'm just happy that my relatives asked me about it since, had they simply decided to trust my parents, then I doubt anyone in the family would have been speaking to me at this stage either. I had not spoken to my parents for the past 5 years, but the rest of my family, my aunts, uncles, and naturally my cousins, had been there for me. I honestly didn't want to lose that. And I suppose my parents chose to try and screw that up for me as well since they couldn't abide it. Simply said, I find it incomprehensible that people despise me so strongly. I have literally not done anything to them. Although my parents have always had a soft spot for my brother right from our youth, my brother and I have never been very close. This seems needless and overbearing. Update 3. Hi. So I posted an update 2 days ago. Today my mother decided to get in touch once more. She had nowhere else to go except pay me a visit to speak with me as I had blocked them everywhere. She was already there, waiting for me to get back home from work. Since I was simply so tired from work already, I really didn't feel like chatting to her. I almost decided I would be getting back into the car, but she noticed me and I had to go talk to her. Since it would be quite difficult to get rid of her, I chose to talk to her in the front yard instead of admitting her into my house. This proved to be quite bad for me since finally she started screaming at me, drawing the attention of the neighbors as well. The exchange began quite naturally. She just struck up a casual conversation with me and I had to respond gently. Then I couldn't help myself, so I started asking her why she had been fabricating lies about me to fit me as the evil man. I informed her that although my family had treated me like this, I had never wished anything negative to happen to them. I honestly simply wanted to go on with my life, but they were making even that incredibly difficult for me. I had been suppressing these emotions for a very long time. Hence when I saw her it simply spilled out and I couldn't control myself. Ultimately, I informed her that although they had never treated me the same way and I was rather let down by their actions, I found it quite difficult to consider them as family after all that had transpired. I stated that since I had just returned home from work and was truly not in the mood to fight or talk to anyone about anything too emotionally taxing, whatever she had come to discuss could be done later. She had been listening to me patiently up until that point, but she became rather agitated when I told her I wanted not to talk to her at that moment and said she was only here to apologize for the exact same things I had mentioned. She claimed that she and my father had not been thinking clearly. They had first been somewhat offended by my response since I had refused to stand up for my family and even paid visits to my brother while he was in the hospital. I wasn't not visiting since they then understood they hadn't exactly treated me well in the prior 5 years and that I was clearly still rather offended about that. She had come to try to settle things out between us since she thought the family should stick together right now for emotional stability. She changed her plan and decided she would yell at me instead when I informed her I wanted no conversation with her. She advised me to simply be happy that I still have a family since, following the way I had responded upon learning of my brother's injury, She had half of a mind to cut me off and ensure that the rest of my relatives likewise ceased communicating with me permanently. She clarified that she thought my reaction had not been sad enough when I found out about my brother's tragedy, as I did not know what she meant. Not even did I know what she had expected of me. She claimed that when I told her about my brother's accident, she expected me to at least show some feeling, but during the phone call I had just sounded quite apathetic. Clearly, regardless of our personal relationships, some news like that was absolutely going to impact me, and it has indeed. As I said before, I do not wish it onto anyone. This includes my family, even with our close ties. I was therefore quite offended learning about his accident. Perhaps that had not shown up on the phone call since she could not see my face, but her arguments were simply wholly unfounded and irrational. She even said that my brother's absence for Karen and my nephew had shown how little I valued the family, as I had not been there for them. She was only fabricating once more to support their behavior. Since these things are utterly strange and pointless, I truly believe that my parents have started to lose their minds. She started screaming at me, thus I lost even more interest in talking to her and chose to hide inside my house. I thus unlocked the entrance to my house after some time and entered while she was still screaming at me. She followed me inside, but I closed the door in her face and advised her to leave since I was really offended and wanted no further interaction with her. She battled with me, but I told her I would call the police. That's when she finally departed, but not before berating me out and declaring I would shortly suffer consequences. I'm not even curious about learning what that implies. I have no idea what that entails. I simply want to unwind and go on living. Update 4. Hi there. Following the accident 26 days ago, my family at last received some positive news to deliver today to all. They obviously did not personally inform me about it. I learned about it from my cousins. The good news is that my brother is at last displaying some progress. That's a positive indication since he is reacting better and out of a coma is not. Though I'm not really regarded as part of the family anymore and have been thrown out long ago, the last month has been rather trying for everyone in the family, including myself, so I truly hope he can make it and that he only improves from here forward. My parents have truly proven to me that they are unhinged in the way they have been following my life throughout the past 26 days. They were simply venting their anger on me. Following my last conversation with my mother, which I discussed in my last update, I did not hear from her for a few days. Then though, my father called me up to scream at me instead. I cannot tell it was him as he used a different number from the one he typically uses. He started screaming at me practically right away when I answered the call, so I wouldn't even have a chance to hang up when I discovered it was him. He was rather cunning about it too. He aimed to surprise me so he could yell at me. My brain would be all muddled instead of phoning me at any regular time during the day. He decided to contact me at 5 in the morning when he knew I would be sleeping and would have to get woken up to answer his call. A few days after my conversation with my mother, my dad contacted me at 5 o'clock in the morning. Following almost 3 phone calls, I at last answered the 4th one. He began screaming at me right away about what an unappreciative child I was and how he wanted I never to have been born. I was a horrible human being for not even bothering to come see my brother in the hospital when he was suffering so much, and for not being there for the family, he claimed. Thus he said he was going to make sure the rest of the family never spoke to me again. I was still processing everything, thus he was the one who hung up after raving for about 5 minutes. By the time I finished with everything, he had hung the phone and banned me. It wasn't very hilarious at the time it happened, but now I find it really humorous since my parents are simply so determined to make me appear like a bad guy and yell at me for pointless actions. For these exact reasons, they are ready to go out of their way into such extremities. As usual, I had to be there for the family. I have already mentioned that I think they were venting their frustrations on me. They just wanted a scapegoat. However, it's okay as my father failed in convincing the rest of the family against me since they know I'm not guilty and they also know what happened 5 years ago. Still, I simply hope they get off my back and concentrate on my brother since his condition is getting better. Update 5. Hi, returning here after almost 3 years seems somewhat strange. Since then, a lot has transpired, generally for the better. Right now I'm in Germany working. Having been here for the past 1.5 years, I have also started seeing someone. It's been lovely, truly. My girlfriend and I have been together for the past 8 months. If I'm being honest, I have had absolutely zero contact with my family for the past 3 years. That has also been delightful. To be different, I have stayed in touch with my good relatives. Right now, my brother is totally well. He survived the crash, and although it took him some time to recover, he is doing great right now. After my brother had begun to recover, Karen came over to me to apologize for all that had past transpired. But I just told her at this moment an apology was not necessary. After everyone realized I was heading to Germany for business, She came to see me with a bouquet to apologize on behalf of her and my brother. Though he was too embarrassed of the events 8 years ago, my brother could not come see me. Honestly, it made little difference now. I thus simply informed them I forgave them and showed no further care. And that was true. I was on better things, moving on with my life, so I did not really care. I have been here since then. My parents no longer interact with me, and I am quite glad about this, as I would never let that ever happen once more under any conditions. Now, I'm at last content. Anyway, I must get back to my life now that you people are all caught up. Thank you so very much to the folks who showed me so much love and care when I was publishing here, and also kept asking about me in the comments and everything long after I had stopped publishing.